Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the ACL. We are getting down there in weeks, ladies and gentlemen. So much so that now I am going to be on the analyst desk, joined today by the one, the only Sneezes to cover our series today. How are you doing today, Sneezes?
Hey, Quacks, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this lower bracket run. It'll be a lot of fun. I think we got a really young team and a really veteran team, so it'll be old versus new, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And two teams with kind of the opposite stories, I feel. You know, peak performers going in, and I believe are the only fourth seed left. So to see them make it this far, you know, they had multiple upsets. They got the 2-0 over Straw Hat Crew, which I guess in terms of seeding, you could call it an upset. And then they got the big one over ISU. So they have been really climbing a tall mountain, whereas CCG kind of came in as this team that a lot of people expected to be kind of at this position, potentially in the winners bracket at this point, and now they face a test of can they get through this rising star, this rising team of, like you said, a lot of veterans and a lot of experience.
Yeah, I think peak performance has been a little inconsistent, but that's kind of what you expect, right? These guys are all veterans. You know, we got Alorem, Kitsua, Robbie Bob, Dardoch. You know, these are players that know when to turn it on. They know when to, you know, they know how to play together. These guys were in UST together. They won a national championship. I'm not so worried about the ups and downs. I think they got it figured out.
Yup, absolutely. And I do have to say, the one big position that I am looking at when it comes to both of these teams, kind of the big star matchup in a way, it is definitely, to me, going to be Kryra versus Kitsuo. Kitsuo been around for a decent amount of time, and Kryra has had a monumental year. 2024 is really where he stepped into his own. A lot of people took notice of him. A lot of people coined him as kind of the savior of CCG. He joined that team, replaced Chad, came and started demolishing everybody and allowed them to keep their spot in the NACL. And, you know, he's also a participant in the Saito Combine. So he's made it to some of the biggest heights you can go to in terms of Tier 3, in terms of Tier 2. And he's looking to add a potential title onto his name as well with CCG. So I feel like that would be a really big upstart for his career going into the next year. But he's got to go through Kitsuo, who has been a proven player for a long time now.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with Kryra. Fun fact, Kryra was a sub on Team Fish Taco back in the day when I was on TFT. And so was Crimson, actually. So both those guys were our sub at the time. But Kryra's really worked hard, you know, super impressive on the journey. Looking forward to seeing him in NACL next split, knock on wood. But yeah, I think this game to me is going to be mid-jungle, right? I talk about mid-jungle all the time in my co-stream. Kitsuo Robbie, probably the best duo at playing through mid lane. Robbie's very good at calling his spots, knows when he needs to hover, when he needs to shove out, when he want to recall. And, you know, Kryra Aljun, a little, what do you say? Little raw. So really skilled, but maybe they can get exploited by the veterans here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're starting to already, as we hop into the draft, see some of those veteran picks get taken away by CCG, notably Alorem's Tom Kenshin. I am interested to see how hard CCG is going to lean into some of those more preferential picks going into this draft and how willing they are to potentially give away some of those power picks that could be picked on R1 and R2 by peak performers, or potentially just later down the line for those solo lanes, as we might expect. So, yep, we see the Tom Kench, we see the Ziggs. It's a question of what are they willing to allow peak performers to play in terms of experience.
Aljun has been very good on the Silas. He's been very good on the Bunny champion, whose name I can't remember at the moment. Aurora, yeah. And I think Kryra has a really interesting champ pool where he doesn't have to pick early, right? They're banning the Skarner, they're banning the Yone, another Aljun standby. I think it's going to come down to what type of comp does CCG want to play in game one. On blue side, when you think about drafting, especially early in a series, I want to see cohesion. I want to see a comp that all does the same thing. Everyone's poking, everyone's going in, you know, a very aligned composition. Where red side, you can get those individual matchup exploits by having counter pick.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going further into the draft. The Ash going to be the last one taken away. And I imagine CCG want to open up either with the Ambessa or the Bunny Champion, like you said, Sneezes. So they're going to unlock that one right away. This is technically a flex, as Crimson has played it once. So there is the ability for it to go into the top lane. But recently, with its rework in the most recent patch, it kind of lost a little bit of that power to go up there. So we'll have to wait and see what CCG are thinking. Meanwhile, though, Peak Performers, no surprise to see that they are going to be, kind of targeting that bot lane early on here. Sage is really good at kind of standing on his own 2 feet as an AD carry. So you pick a champion like Varus that I think reflects that, and you're sitting really good if you're Peak Performers.
Yeah, Peak Performers bot lane, Sage, Wabe, and Dardoch have been a little inconsistent in lane. Not quite. Yeah. They've got 2v2'd a couple times, but I like the long range. I like the purple comp we're drafting for Peak Performers. It's very hard for a champ like Aurora to go through, and Robbie is very, very good at the Syndra. So I think this is a planned counter. They're saying, hey, we're going to outrange you guys. We're going to exploit the short range comp you have to build with Aurora to make her functional. And I like the draft plan going into game 1, especially I'm pretty sure Peak Performance is coachless. I don't know. Is anyone coaching CCG?
I mean, this is basically Lotus Light, so I'm not actually sure about that right out of the gate. But I do think that Dardoch, I mean, like you said,
there's like two, three coaches on this roster anyway, right? Like Alorum's a coach, Dardoch's a coach. Like, it's not like these guys are headless chickens.
Oh, for sure. And CCG going to be drafting up that Ezreal. I imagine they probably want to get a bot laner picked up there. It is going to be the Leona, which is, I believe, Trevor's most played at 6 games. So sticking with their guns, sticking with their comfort so far. I think Peak Performers have to probably slam down a support here. I think maybe Braum could be an option. What do you think it Sneezes?
I could see the Braum. I really like the Braum angle here to negate the poke from Ezreal, and it's good. Mm-hmm. It's solid into Leona. It's good. You can also just go Ally, or you can drop support to 5p. Dardoch really likes to have counter pick on R5, and so he's also very good at compositional counters. Oh, I'm just hearing that Mesmerism is the coach of CCG, which was also the case in NACL, so makes total sense. I didn't know if he was like chilling in the off season or what. Sorry, Mesmerism.
Yep, so it is going to be that
Mid jungle 2v2. Kitsuo's one of Kitsuo's most played. Sorry to cut you off, Quacks. One of Kitsuo's most played, and Syndra, Lee Sin, a classic combo. You get the stun into the Q into the R, like a lot of free damage.
I mean, there are a lot of options that you can just straight up go with the Syndra. I mean, I've seen some people really prioritize the Nidalee if you need a little bit more magic damage. I think that the Scatter of the Week is a super good tool for being able to go and block in some of those more proactive junglers. And I think this is what we expect from a player like Kitsuo, a guy who prefers the Lee Sin, a guy who prefers the Jarvan, who really wants to get out on the map in those first 14 minutes and start to snowball some of these lanes. And that's what we're looking at so far in this game. The setup from the Syndra into the Lee Sin. We expect this Varus to probably be paired up with something that's more engage heavy. That's something that Dardoch has really preferized throughout his kind of career as a support. And like you kind of mentioned earlier, it is going to be that Alistar hovered for the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's locked in.
Yeah, I think they need to R5 top lane here, just because you don't know about the Aurora. If CCG was smart, though, they'd go Aurora top anyway and then just slam Silas here. But
I mean, Silas, I didn't think about it, but Silas has got a lot of really good ultimates in this game to steal. The Unbreakable Will is an obvious one, but being able to get that Scatter of the Week, kind of a combo finisher, if you will, for a lot of Silas's damage, especially once he starts to level up those abilities and get those items later down the line, can be really useful. But they are going to stick to their guns and throw that Aurora mid lane. It's going to be the Vi in the jungle and the Renekton in the top lane.
Ooh, the Alorum Classic, the Poppy. I love it. We'll see if he locks us in, but look, this is a fist fight comp. Both teams want to fight. We're gonna fight over grubs. I'm thinking maybe a lane swap from red side. We'll see, but I think both teams want to fight. Both teams are gonna play through mid, play through top, right? Renekton Vi pretty potent. Lee Sin, Syndra, Poppy's gonna hang. Varus outranges Ezreal. A lot of good counter picks from Peak Performers, but CCG maybe they can just win a team fight.
Absolutely. And just the amount of sheer lockdown from CCG, I think, is going to make it really easy for Ezreal to maximize his damage output. Aurora as well, I think you could throw in there. It's going to be super easy for them to hit their spells, maximize their damage input, as long as Leona, Vi, and Renekton are sort of heralding that charge. You know, they take the peak performers, squishy targets to like the bathroom stall, they hold them down, and you just start beating them up for sure. So I am definitely looking, though, at this Aurora, at this Ezreal, to be the big heroes of this game, because of course you expect the Vi, the Renekton to have that early game agency, but later down the line it's really going to be on those scalers. It's going to be on the Ezreal, it's going to be on the Aurora, and like you talked about, Robbie Bob is a player that at least for me, I feel like Robbie Bob is kind of a crownless king. Everybody has declared this guy as one of the best mid laners in his field, but he doesn't really had a huge title to show for it. So I am looking for him, at least in the ACL, to really prove that front, and to say, you know, I am the best mid laner around these areas. I can really pop off when it needs to happen. And this is a game where it definitely needs to happen.
It's with Robbie mid jungle. Let's see the 2v2.
Yep, absolutely. I think the 2v2 is going to be really important. I also think in the same vein, the bot lane will matter a decent amount. You know, Trevor as a player, I think, has been a little bit more known for his roaming, especially on a champion like Leona. I think that is especially possible. You talked about those early grub fights before sneezes, and I definitely agree with you. So I'm looking at Trevor to roam around, and looking at Dardoch to roam around and kind of leave their AD carries on an island. But before they do that, just try and give them an extra little bump in gold, so that they can stand on their own two legs when their supports are gone to go get milk and such.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much. I think the 2v2 is pretty even for bot, like prio wise, push wise. So I'm expecting a lot of action mid lane, right? Like whoever doesn't have flash is in real trouble this series. Ao June or Robbie Bob, right? Mid laner, preserve your flash and just call your jungle on every wave, because it's like I said, it's gonna be a fist fight. And I bet this game comes down to either first or second grubbies. Grubby fight's gonna be big.
Yep, I for sure think grubs are a big factor in this game, but I am interested to see kind of how these teams play the side lanes, because normally you look at a champion like Ezreal in particular, and you say, okay, we want this champion to get to 3 items. You stick him in top lane or bot lane. You kind of mentioned those lane swaps. So there is a possibility that he gets time alone to collect those resources and really make use of those grubs. But outside of the Ezreal, I feel like unless you're going for a 5v5 push, it's going to be hard to imagine a world where side lane threat is a really prevalent thing for CCG and peak performers as well.
Yeah, I think often with Ezreal, you just want to sit him mid anyway and just control mid lane in the mid game. And so I think Renekton and Aurora are going to be your side laners. But I think these comps are like 4-1 comps at best. I don't see a lot of like split push, you know, and it's just not meta right now anyway. It's just not really what people are playing. So it's too hard with TP. TP is just ruins all the side lane play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess this is the draft, ladies and gentlemen, for game 1. So we are going to throw it to a quick little break, and we're going to get an ad read up on the screen for you all. And when we come back, we will have game number 1 ready and waiting for you all. So don't go anywhere.
Quick shout out to ProComps, our sponsor and a game changer app for the League community. This isn't just like the other tools. It's your personal draft coach, perfect for both teams and solo players. In fact, you can pair it with any other app you use. ProComps stands out with features like custom champion pools, personalized tier lists, and live draft advice. Think of it as having a virtual coach and a strategy toolkit all in one. They offer real-time champion ban recommendations. They already have over 200,000 downloads and thousands of daily users just like you. ProComps is user-friendly and totally free. It is a no-brainer to at least give it a go. Download ProComps now and you'll experience a whole new level of drafting power in your league games. Go to procomps.gg, download it from Overwolf, or click the panel below on our stream.
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Champions League. My name is Gordo. I'm joined again by TDS. Thank you very much to Quacks and Sneezes on the analyst desk. They'll be hanging out with us all night long. We got a best of 5 ahead of us here, TDS, so there might be quite a few games in the near future.
Yeah, it's a BO5. It's the first BO5 of the ACL season, and we're going to have a few of them that may go the full distance. And it's also going to be the first time we're going to have the fearless full BO5 with this team. So it's going to be a fun experience seeing how they are going to perform. Also, those spheres were really off position.
Yeah, Robbie going for a real unique hold the balls really far away from you strat here.
Yeah.
I assume this is a spectator bug. Hopefully it breaks eventually, but this will be a fun one in the meantime. But other than that, CCG posturing around mid. Lots of them have sight on Robbie Bob. I'm sure somebody would have paused by now if the balls were bothering them. Seems like they're doing all right.
Yeah, they probably are not going to be suffering too much from those balls. It's going to work out well enough for them, and it just means that we're going to have a normal start, like nothing out of the ordinary here. Nobody really trying to get really deep vision. Nobody really trying to do anything weird. So this is a pretty comfortable start for both teams, it feels like.
Absolutely. No crazy invades here. A little bit of vision on towards Peak Performers Birds was secured earlier on by Aojun. They also look like they're going to get aggressive on the Sagewabe and Dardoch to start things off. Array and Trevor in one of the strongest bot lanes we've had in the ACL so far this season, and immediately bringing the pain here towards Dardoch and Sagewabe. They are going to be forced to back on off at about 200 to 300 HP apiece, and it will be that early lane priority going to the Ezreal Leona.
Really looking out for blood, trying to be able to kill someone as quickly as possible, and already doing a really good job putting as much pressure as they can, especially against Barra's lane, one of the better AD carries to early on, try and control the pace of the lane, doing a really good job. And it's also going to be a lethality Barras at that, so he should have a really big amount of early damage that at this point got completely denied because of the great trade from CCG.
Definitely. So going to be a wave being shoved on in by Array. Meanwhile, ooh, a little bit of an all-in onto Aojun here. Kitsuo on that Lee Sin, a pick that he has made a big part of this Peak Performers identity over the course of the season. One of the most picked junglers out of a team that has not really gone towards a big, wide variety of junglers. Kitsuo being on stuff like this Lee Sin, being like on stuff like this Jarvan, has really been the bread and butter of the Peak Performers roster throughout the season. So really going to be looking, as we start to get into Fearless BO5, it's going to be really critical for Peak Performers to either expand Kitsuo's jungle pool or to get these wins on the Lee Sins, on the Jarvans, because you're only going to get one crack at them.
Yeah, they're not going to get much chances, and certainly they need to take the best chances they can, as we saw a little bit of a movement as well coming in from Trevor, but nothing going to turn out there. They're trying to maybe put a little bit of pressure here in the mid lane, knowing what Robbie Bob's capability is, and this is something that the analyst desk talk about. The potential from Robbie Bob, the value that he brings for the team, and if you left him in touch, he really can be so much pressure for Peak Performers, and already putting that pressure onto Aojun as Dardoch.
Dardoch going to get found by Trevor. Does punt him back away and able to retreat back out underneath the tower. I mean, Dardoch on the Alistar too. While we're on the subject of champion pools, this has been the one pick that Dardoch has been willing to go to game in and game out. He's got one of the most diverse support pools on the ACL, or in the ACL. Pretty nice shout out to his most recent time in the LCS, where he had one of the most diverse jungle pools. But the Alistar has been one that he's always willing to go for. As Trevor calls out Robbie Bob's flash. What a move on the Zenith Blade there. And that's going to be first blood crafted out of nothing by Trevor in the mid lane.
Yeah, what a way to set up the first blood for Aojun, putting pressure already in a matchup that was already favored towards Robbie Bob to start it off. And first blood, really good start for CCG, and now they need to try and find another solution on the side of Peak Performers, because Robbie Bob has no flash, no teleport, and he also lost first blood against the Aurora.
And Robbie Bob is one of the rocks of this roster. You heard the analyst desk talking about how reliable and dependable he was, and how much consideration he gets towards being one of the top mid laners in tier 3. Getting him off onto the wrong foot, putting Aojun ahead on this Aurora, a massive step for them. And see if they're going to repeat that process, as Robbie is now flashless after that last play. Kryra going to be level 6 here soon, and that's definitely going to start becoming an even bigger problem for Robbie on this immobile Syndra.
Yeah, they know that there is a really good chance for them to not only continuously go against this Syndra, but also if they keep the control up like this, they are already looking aggressively towards it. Kryra is already in position. Maybe Crimson could be the next target, but Robbie Bob has to be careful as well. Yep.
Definitely, or I'm going to land that knock up, but Kitsuo in the area. There's that follow-up gank, not even waiting for level 6 on Kryra. Trevor returns to the scene of the crime and commits a second one. CCG 2-0 start in the mid lane.
Yeah, there's no flash, there's no need to wait on the side. They pull it off perfectly. They blow the flash on the buy and they find another kill onto Robbie Bob. No teleport now. This Aurora is now starting off the game pretty greatly, and Robbie Bob on the other side, not the best start possible.
Not at all, and that's going to give these first grubs on over towards CCG, being like they have no trouble being able to secure those, and going to be returning to the scene of the crime there for certain as well. As Crimson on this Renekton already building himself up a solid lead in the one-on-one. He's about 10 CS up here. Kitsuo hovering mid, but still not level 5, and I hate to report, Robbie's respawn still has the visual issue on the balls there. Probably just going to be true for the whole game now, as here comes a collapsing CCG squad. Dardoch has arrived to try to turn this one back around. He's got one level on Trevor. Kryra still looking for the fight. Meanwhile, we're going to check out top lane here for a sec. Does look like a disengage did occur in mid lane. Now a trade between Array and Alorum, but Array getting the better end of this one as he just continues to fire shots away and keep that passive stacked up.
Yeah, was able to also stack the Conqueror, which means that he was going to get the better the longer that trade went by, and he did a lot of damage onto Alorum. Namely, Alorum isn't necessarily the strongest at this point, but he will get stunned here, and Kryra is on the side. No steadfast presence
now level 6 just throws out the cease and desist immediately, knocking Alorum back away. An attempted charge to safety will not find its mark, but here's Dardoch to try to clean this one up, popping the ignite, flashing for the pulverize, and claiming the shutdown. But Trevor and Array still with full run of top lane, 2 plates already to their name, and I don't think Dardoch's going to stop him from pressuring on a third.
Yeah, with no ignite, I think he has a lot of chances there to actually go even harder there. Importantly, I do think the flash was important by Dardoch to actually get the kill. Oh, Robbie.
Aujun with a solo kill, just not respecting the damage that Between Worlds brings, guarantees the follow-up skills, and that's a third death for Robbie Bob.
Yeah, that is not the start of the game that Robbie Bob wanted. I just quickly wanted to touch as well on why Dardoch's flash was actually important there, because if the ignite doesn't kill immediately, Bai has the chance of getting her shield reset on her passive, and probably is able to survive the ignite damage, and makes it a little bit more dicey for them to actually get that kill. So the flash is important. They do get a kill on the mid lane with Robbie Bob dying there, but they also collected the dragons, so at the very least they are finding other avenues that may work out for them.
Definitely going to be looking towards that bottom lane, towards stacking up those dragons. It is a CS lead over to Array, though, off the back of this early game. Gonna have to be looking out for Sagewabe to really make use of this lethality Varus coming into these mid-game dragon fights to give peak performers something to play towards. This is going to take them a long time to stack up this Syndra, given how far behind she's starting to fall, just getting zoned away from experience. Able to keep up in CS, no problem, but certainly going to be further behind in those stacks from the time that she hasn't been in lane landing skills on Aujun.
Yeah, I would say a little bit of that is on Aujun, not able to make the CS lead be a bit more sizable. But the fact that Robbie Bob is currently 0-3, he was able to recover his flash, so at the very least that's important. But now Kitsuo looking to be the next target.
Oh, goes in on the Sonic Wave, going to be forced to ultimate. Trevor going to be able to buffer it with the Zenith Blade. Really nice play from Trevor on the Leona so far tonight. Been on point with those Zenith Blades. Nothing comes of it that time, but they're going to claim that red buff.
Yeah, and it's interesting because both of these supports are the type of supports that I catalog as the engaged supports, right? The players that probably prefer more to play those engagers, even though they do have a myriad of other picks. I think the engagers, it's a favorite of them because of how it makes their playstyle feel a little bit more cohesive with what they want to accomplish. And I think Trevor and Dardoch, similar in that sense, but Trevor has been able to maximize the value of the Leona this game so much more. And a lot of that started off of that level 1 plate or level 1 trade that happened bot side that enabled Array and Leona. Oh.
Ooh, Dardoch thinks he's got a pick out of Kryra. The numbers are here for CCG, though. True Shot Barrage going to come out of Closet for him, taking the majority of the damage. And Steadfast Presence will not keep him standing. Kitsuo now has to flash away as well, but there's another scene that's played in between worlds. On to both out of Aojun. Going to be a triple kill to Array. And CCG continue their dominance of this early game.
It's an onslaught and it's working out in CCG's favor so far. It's not only going to be those kills, it's the remaining grubs. Now 6 grubs in favor of the side of CCG. They will get extremely high value out of this play, and it's on Peak Performers to really find their stride and try and turn it around. I'm not sure what they are going to do here. Play in the mid game may try and turn around this, especially with their burst damage that they have. So catching out some of the members from CCG is not impossible. But at this point, it's looking really scary because it's not. I want to add on top of what I say. They got the grubs, they got the kills, they got Array on 3 kills.
They definitely do, and it's going to be really difficult to be able to find the damage in these later game fights when the main DPS of CCG is so far ahead, right? Array going to be reliable, going to be able to bring in that damage from a range, but also going to have that all-in potential with this bruisery top side and Aojun on this Aurora. It's not a lot of great answers going to be available for the Peak Performers here unless they can make some massive picks. And the Ezreal, perhaps one of the best adapted to be able to avoid those kind of maneuvers from somebody like Lee Sin with that arcane shift on such a low cooldown.
Yeah, like he can continuously spam it, and it's really difficult to point down onto the Ezreal, and that's why having a lack of point and click CC on the side of PP will make it difficult to be able to not only lock down Array, but even the Aurora is kind of difficult to lock her down if you don't have an insta way to try and put her in place, and that's a lot of damage to just have a lost chapter, really.
Yeah, wow, that Aurora damage. Yeah, they may have taken away her AoE Camille ult, but the damage is still definitely there, and Dardoch just loses half his HP without even really doing anything, as he's just walking by and passing, tanking basic abilities. And there's to force this dive onto Sage Wabe. Not slowing down one bit is Kryra. He picks up the kill, flashes out to safety, puts Array on a rampage, and they're going to claim more turret plates for that.
Yeah, it's a cleanse and a flash for a flash and a cleanse, funnily enough. But they do get the kill onto Sage, they get another kill onto Array, and it's also going to be more turret damage in favor of the side of CCG, as Crimson takes a pretty big round of damage down up there, but not going to turn into the worst thing possible.
Plates continuing to fall in bottom lane, 4 of those going to Array's name and definitely catapulting himself even further ahead in the gold. Meanwhile, Robbie thinks he has an angle onto Aojun there. Hasn't popped the ultimate yet, but won't be able to catch him. The Between Worlds getting him over to the other side, and Aojun will be safe. That is going to be turret falling bot lane, the second of the game for CCG, and they're winning on all fronts here, TDS. Crimson even getting that turret gold up at the top side, nearly done stacking his cull. He's had a quieter game, but a successful one, and the rest of his team is just massive.
Yeah, they're just simply way too strong at this point. We even have to remember that Crimson has a call that is barely completed, already has an item, so he's going to be really strong for the next coming fights. And the cooldowns are going to be up for the potential next Dragon fight. They will have a lot of control. Actually, I think probably Herald fight that is going to spawn pretty soon. The control that CCG has at this point feels like it's difficult to try and stop it, as Kryra goes over the wall. They don't know about this. Maybe they can try and collapse onto Kryra here, since he's by himself.
Definitely. All right. Ooh. There's going to be the knockup coming on through. Will be a nice shift away found by Array. And Kitsuo going to be here looking for a potential steal on towards the Rift Herald. It's falling down pretty fast though, and Trevor is in the way. Will Kitsuo go for this? Nope. Forced out by the damage output of Array, and the Rift Herald will be secured from CCG. Peak Performers, they arrived to the play, but they just can't make anything happen.
Yeah, it's not like they can find a lot. Oh, Zagiwabi's dead. He has no cleanse.
Yeah, that's going to be a drop on the Varus, and they're looking for Dardoch as well. Here comes that Unbreakable Will. We'll keep him standing for the time being. Rift Herald gets thrown down, and we'll be looking to take out the last of the outers. Kitsuo chunked out so low. Robbie arrives to the scene, but just a Blackfire torch to his name and nobody to back him up. He will not be able to stage the defense. Mid-outer turret falls, and they're going to get a charge onto a second one here. Look at all these grubbies. They're already willing to work on the turret, and there's not going to be any response really available. Scatter of the Week cannot clear the wave. A second inner turret goes down, and CCG off to the races, 8K plus in the lead.
Yeah, they are just simply so much more stronger than them, and they are pushing as hard as they can and as hard as they want. Like, there's barely any way to stop them. I'm going to try and collect at the very least some sort of extra body for the team. Probably will die though.
Yeah, Lauren try and fight it out. Does get that keeper's
he pushed
verdict.
away.
Be able to create the space, and he is home free unless Aojun can stay on top of him for much longer, which, I mean, maybe he can. Kitsuo coming on up for the support. Aojun going to flash away. TP being channeled. Robbie Bob arrives, knocks Aojun back in, looking to at least make a trade, and Kitsuo will be able to secure that one. But now he's locked down on the opposite side, kicking it back away. Crimson trying to create that extra space, so Trevor shows up on the flank himself. Alorum going in, trying to finish off Kryra, get that shutdown goal, but stunned up and torn apart by Crimson, who continues on to a second. It's a double kill to Crimson, and Array still firing off shots, looking to see who else he can get on the cleanup.
Yeah, has probably one more arcane shift, not going to be able to get him there, but it's still such a sad fight at the end for Peak Performers, because they actually were trying to turn around really well. The problem is that they are so far behind that they are not able to close out on crucial kills. Cryer surviving by the skin of his steed, then members arriving on time by CCG, able to turn around that situation and making the gold lead be a 10k gold lead at 16. It's just such a just such a dominating game so far by CCG, and it's difficult to see the angles for Peak Performers to turn around because their game was really focused on early on. Alarim?
Array caught out by Alarim in rotation, but nah, he's gonna have to back on away from this. There's some things that even Steadfast Presence can't do, and tanking up this Ezreal for very long is one of them. Peak Performers grouped together, but with one of their frontliners already chunked out, just going to go clear out the wave. Reset Alorum, get him back out onto the scene, and see if they can make a challenge for this dragon in about a minute. Dardoch might be caught, though. Trevor going to find him, gets the Shield of Daybreak, but there's no follow-up damage quite yet. Dardoch choosing to keep this fight going, though. Kryra going to arrive eventually, and there's Array with the kill. Sagewabe has to flash away from the solar flare, and Peak Performers, they're down to support as the dragon is coming up.
Yeah, they don't have enough tools to be able to turn around, and maybe a top lane or Alarim. Oh wait, Dreamer.
Knock up from Alorum, going to give them a little bit of an opportunity. There's the chains of corruption spreading across the squad. 2 members already down. Sagewabe will drop at the end of the day. And Between Worlds from Aojun brings the damage. It's a triple kill to the CCG mid laner, and it's a near ace with Dardoch respawning just in time.
Yeah, Dardoch comes back there, and a lot of good shutdowns went into Sagewabe and Robbie Bob, or at the very least into Robbie Bob more so than onto Sagewabe, but they get much more value anyway from CCG. They get the teamfight victory, they get the push into the turrets, they probably will get the dragon soon enough, and it's difficult to really know what is going to happen after. And this was such a good fight. The start is great with the knockouts connecting, the amount of just blowback from the side of the Syndra, and then the follow-up from Sagewabe, which went lethality. So from a far distance, if he can connect his arrow, probably deals a good amount of damage. But at the end, it's still not enough to turn around because they are so far behind in the game that it's simply really difficult to make it work out as well.
The options are dwindling for Peak Performers here as CCG getting dangerously close to doubling their gold here. Such a massive lead pre-20 minutes. They're going to get themselves a second dragon. I don't think Soul is in the cards for this one, though. CCG going to be looking to close things out a little bit faster than that. And the Baron up in less than a minute is where I'm going to look to see them try to do that. Kitsuo moving forward, finding Trevor with the Sonic Wave, but see if they want to take this any further. Robbie Bob does get the follow-up CC. They've got a chance to make a pick here. Crimson is willing to take the fight, though. Aojun here as well. Alorum TP's into the side. Robbie Bob going to get the first kill of the fight onto Trevor, and Crimson getting focused down as well. Dodges over to the other side of the Between Worlds, but here comes Array, and Array is where all the damage sits. 4 members drop in an instant, and Dardoch about to make it a full ace to CCG.
Yeah, and they were just 10 seconds short of just being able to instantaneously move to Baron. They are still going to get it, by the way. They get Dragon, they get another fight, they get Baron in the process as well, and when they lack the damage to be able to kill these important targets that are getting locked down in position, when you're able to find Crimson like this, when you're able to find Trevor like this, and you cannot kill them, that's when you know that the game is completely south from whatever you wanted to do. Because this should have been the perfect opportunity for you to not only get kills, but also reset the state of the map so that you can try and fight maybe for a couple of objectives like the turrets that are bounty, or for maybe the Baron buff, try and play around the dance with it. But they know that they don't have any position, and they know that they have absolutely no control of the map, so they can barely do anything there.
Yep. Crimson just TP'd into the bottom lane, looking to keep this pressure on with the big wave they've already secured with themselves in the Baron buff. Trevor going to be the focus of an attempted pick again, but we've seen how this song and dance goes. Aojun TP's into the fray, immediately chunking out Alorum. Crimson caught on the side a little bit, fighting without the backup, gonna try to kite it out. Alorum, the first one to fall in the fight between worlds, connects onto 3. Robbie Bob is the man to be focused on, and Array is already taking on all comers. Rips through Dardoch, 3 members down. Robbie and Sage Wabe are the last 2 standing, and they got to keep their base alive for 20 seconds without backup.
Yeah, and this may really be game. It's only 2 members alive. Baron buff plus Grubs pushing strong in the bot side, and it's 5 members as well for CCG. First game, completely another domination. Nothing more to say. 25-6, more than a 10k gold lead at 21 minutes in. They just play with their power super early on, and they made it work out perfectly. Really well done by them, man.
CCG, they're betting it all to try to win it right now. They're not able to finish off Sage Wabe. Will they be able to take the Nexus in time? Aojun has the health, as does Array. And with more kills than minutes in the game, CCG take a dominant win to start off this best of 5.
Yeah, they wanted to give more power to their KDA, but like that game was just simply CCG in all the manner that it could. Like from start to finish, they knew what they wanted. They played around it really well. They took advantage of Robbie Bob, a PowerPoint that the Endless Death was talking about so much when we were talking about pregame, and that's where their game really exploded. And we have to look at that going forward in the series as well, because I think that that is going to be the tipping point. If you deny Robbie Bob in at any point in the game, PP loses so much of their value, because he is one of their main playmakers as well as one of their strongest points and most consistent points as well.
Absolutely here. What a dominant performance. And as you said, it starts off with being able to set behind Robbie Bob a massive lead. It's Aojun carries through the entire game and ends up making a big difference in plenty of those crucial fights. So that's definitely what I'm going to be looking for in future rounds. And we're going to get at least 2 future bouts in tonight. So looking forward to see if peak performers are going to be able to adapt. But let's hear what the analyst desk has to say. Sending it back over to Quacks and Sneezes. Let us know your thoughts, guys.
What did I say, fellas? What did I say? Mid jungle. Mid jungle. Flashless Syndra is exploitable. Interesting. No, listen. I'm gonna go quick, Quacks. I think peak performers are not a game 1 team, right? Obviously CCG came to play. They're playing very well, but I would not be surprised if the script gets flipped next game. These guys have kind of come in slow all year, especially in these series. They've like lost a lot of game 1s. If you go look, they got abused, they got exploited. Very well done by CCG to actually play through mid, which we haven't seen enough of in ACL. So well done to them, but I'm not writing off the series just yet.
No, I mean, I feel like it would be foolish to write off the series at this point. I certainly think peak performers have more in the tank. But yeah, going back to kind of what you said about the flashes and how vital they were to the mid lane matchup and opening up that lane for their respective teams. I mean, I have to give it over to Trevor, as we are going to go into a replay. Just look at how effective this guy was kind of on the Leona when we get that one going up. Is we can see Trevor. So the Syndra at this point has the flash. Aojun had to burn his earlier, and I love the proactiveness from CCG. We said they needed to be proactive.
Nice.
The predict from Trevor, absolutely nasty. Robbie Bob Scout of the Week barely misses onto Aojun. And not only do you burn that summoner spell, but you also get the kill, right? You force out so many resources from the mid laner of peak performers right out of the gate, and from there, they just never let up. They got their advantage in the mid lane. And like you foretold, Sneezes, and it really only got worse from there. As our second replay, we're just going to look at some of the team fighting from CCG. I mean, these guys were an absolute machine. Obviously, you know, it came at a cost of them getting that kind of wallet diff right from the get-go, but you can just see how cleanly they were managing to play a lot of these team fights when we get to pull it up.
The important thing about the mid gank, as we pull up this next replay really fast, is they re-ganked it. They re-ganked it. They didn't just let the flash come off CD. All right, let's see this fight.
Yep, absolutely. So beautiful dodge from Array, by the way, on Alorum's ultimate, and they are kind of buying time. You can tell that they're just looking to wait for the Aurora to show up. They get onto Alorum, everyone focuses him down, and then immediately they pivot onto Kitsuo. Trevor kind of drops the priority he had on the Alistar. Aojun comes on in, and they completely thwart what was a pretty decent attempt by Peak Performers to make a proactive play on a side of the map that wasn't necessarily fully claimed by CCG up to that point. So they completely turned that play on its head. They have beautiful target selection, beautiful mechanics coming out from Array. I mean, I call this guy the tyrant of tier 3 for a reason. A lot of people said that when it came to OQs, especially in the summer, this guy was not only the best AD carry, but potentially just straight up the best player, period. And I feel like we saw shades of that here in this game and on this team.
The thing I liked about this play was that it was the impetus for the play was the grub swap. They pushed out their bot lane, they got their ADC off their map, they bought items, then sent him top so they could get prio top and prio mid to secure the grubs. And Peak Performance challenged that and said, hey, we can keep Alorum here, we can play 3v3, and they lost, right? So I want to see more swaps and matching if you're going to actually challenge those plays. If you can't deal with the range advantage of the Ezreal, you got to play the other side of the map.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that was kind of something that was lacking from Peak Performers for a decent majority of this game. Was just their like, it felt like they were not able to really make a cross map play, right? They would always match them in every single fight, even when they had good angles like we see in some of these later team fights, as we'll see in just a little bit. Really kind of the nail in the coffin is going to be this last replay. But at every point, it felt like once those wallets really started to fatten up, no matter how many times Peak Performers kind of hit them, they always got back up. Because look at this setup immediately. 3-man knockup by Alorum, Chains of Corruption comeback, 3-man scatter the week, and you're thinking this might be the point where Peak Performers win. They get a kill, and then immediately Aojun places down his ultimate, goes to the other side, meets up with Kryra. They get the numbers advantage. And it was just a beautiful set-up play by Peak Performers, completely squandered because the wallets were too big. They had Jeff Bezos' salary at that point and were able to flex their Bugattis and Maseratis all over Peak Performers. So I feel like if they made some cross-map plays, if they looked for, you know, other avenues and didn't just try to match them at every point, try to say, okay, we can try this team fight or try this team fight or try this team fight, then we could have seen a potentially longer game. Maybe the result wouldn't have been different. I mean, I highly doubt it would have been, but it would have at the very least, I feel, been a little bit more competitive, Sneezes.
Yeah, I think when you're down, you got to cross map, right? That's kind of the rule. If you can play, you match. If you can't play, you got to cross map. But I actually think this fight that we just showed was a bit of an overplay by CCG. They didn't have the bot wave in, the mid wave was in, they were dropping it, right? But the reason that fight was close was because it was a misplay from CCG, right? It wasn't anything special that Peak Performance did. And the reason Peak Performance lost is because of wallet gap. If that's even gold or even like a 2K gold deficit, it's not a different fight. But we're getting into draft. Nice. Looks like the same sides for game 2, which is interesting. So Peak Performers, I don't know if they had side select for game 1 or not, but they're opting into red side, which is very interesting. And remember, we have champions out because of Fearless. So no Ezreal, no Aurora, no Varus, no Syndra. Very big champions game 1, both teams.
And especially when you look at the players from CCGC, these are some of their best characters. I mean, I associate Ezreal with Array. I associate Crimson with the Renekton and something like the Olaf. I think that Kryra has really been synonymous with some of those big engage bruisers and tanks like the Zac, like the Vi. So those are going to get taken away. And now that we're in a best of 5 setting, I'm really wondering kind of what the endurance is going to be going forward.
I think this was a tough spot for CCG or for Peak Performers. They had to ban the Ivern because the B1 is very strong, and then the Ashe gets through, right? So looks like very similar bans from game 1. Fearless affects us a little bit. I'm interested to see what Sagewabe wants to play to the Ashe. And I wonder Corki. That's probably in Corki. Is Corki bot right now?
So Corki can flex. It's a decent option into Ashe, but you do need a support that I would say can kind of cover the distance. One of the best commodities that you can have with Ashe is that range, and Corki lacks that characteristic as an AD carry. So you need something like a Nautilus paired up with it, or potentially a jungler that can also kind of close the distance. Obviously, Skarner's taken away. Vi is no longer available. You could go for something like a Jarvan as well if you're peak performers. Just something to allow Corki to Valkyrie on in and make something happen.
Yep, there's the Jarvan. Poppy is out. Vi is out. I think Jarvan is good to force on the low mobility Ashe. We'll see. Maybe CCG can go like Viego or you know, Wukong or Xin Zhao, which are kind of the stylistic counters to Jarvan.
I like Wukong a lot.
But we'll see. You know, I think CCG is building a nice range advantage here. Corki, you know, I don't know if it's going to go into bot. Corki could struggle. Oh, the Kindred is a very good counter to Jarvan.
Wow.
Actually, unplayable for Jarvan.
Yeah, it is. It is a really tough match for the Jarvan, especially when you lock it with the Galio. Oh my God, it's too perfect.
It's Ahri, boo. No.
Ahri's good too. Right? We want some setup.
We want Galio.
But I do like the Galio a little bit more. I feel like the Kindred Galio combo is just too good to pass up. But they're gonna. Yep, they're going to hold off on it a little bit, lock in the Braum, probably anticipating that peak performers want to go all in with the engage. You know, you see the Corki, you see the Jarvan, you're thinking, okay, upfront damage is going to be the name of the game for peak performers. And so with Alistar kind of gated away for the rest of the series, I think Braum is certainly the next best thing, if not, you know, potentially an upgrade.
An old team that I was on, we had a rule that you couldn't blind Braum because enchanters absolutely destroy Braum. So I actually want to see Soraka here. I don't think they're going to do it, but I really want to see Soraka. I think Rakan is a good compromise. It's like,
I like that.
Engage enchanter, right? It's like the hybrid, and Rakan outscales really hard here. So I think they just need to all in here, but it's definitely tough. Also, if you're a tier 3 player, Rakan is the best support. Pick Rakan every time in tier 3, you won't be sorry.
True. I agree with
Galio
that.
ban, nice. Now I wonder if they're going to go Silas ban as well and then pick a mage. Like, this seems like an Ori angle for me here from peak performers, and I wonder if they just go Silas and pick the Ori. They could also just take out another Silas counter and take the Silas themselves, because the rule that most teams have with Silas is there's 2 good ults, you take the Silas, right? So they already have Ashe, you already have Kindred. I'm just like, okay. But I want to see like one more good ult before Silas, but I don't think you can drop Silas to R5.
I actually really like Orianna coming out here from peak performers. I mean, if you get the Wombo combo down, it feels like you are just going to be able to insta-win the fight, especially when you've got the double marksman. That backline is going to go poof instantly. If you can lock down that Kindred before they can hit the Lamb's Respite, then you don't really have to worry about it. So I would say that's a bit more of a safe pick. And obviously, you know, a player like Aojun is really comfortable on those mages, but he is also comfortable on the Silas. He's got 3 games on the Silas, 2 games on the Orianna. So both are possible. Both are feasible.
Galio tells me it's probably Silas, and CCG smartly banned Orianna. So well, I think it should be Silas, but they might just push mid to 5. That's not going to be next. There's no way.
Oh, Zoe.
Does Robbie play Zoe?
Does Robbie play?
Robbie does play Rise.
Robbie does play. Yeah, that is an option. Okay, all right, there we go.
Yeah, and they can't pick Silas because Rise will destroy Silas. So yeah, I like this. Yeah, I like it.
Yep. So now, kind of, what is the answer here coming out here from CCG? I mean, you could go. I mean, how do champions that kind of go in your face like Yone fare out? But you want some magic damage, right? I mean, obviously, you know, that's what Rise was kind of providing for peak performers, and now CCG want to get their hands on some of that. So you want a mage in the mid lane, but Rise is going to be kind of just able to dumb down the lane and sort of outscale you at some point. So I guess Orianna, it is kind of an option, Sneezes.
Well, Ori's banned, so they
oh yeah, that's right.
I think it'll be something interesting, like maybe Akali or Aesol. Okay, nice.
Okay, spicy picks in the mid lane. Now I'm really invested in this matchup. Obviously, we don't expect, I would say, a ton of action coming from these champions in the early levels. They're just going to be either
fearless banned.
He is.
So that is ineligible if they lock this.
Yep.
Knock top.
I do like the Maokai. My biggest concern if they lock a tank here for Alorum is going to be that early game damage, because you've got a lot of pressure with the Jarvan, but outside
No, it's
of the
good into
core
Jax. It's really good into Jax.
Yeah.
Just anytime Jax goes on you, you press Q and you get off scot-free.
But then I also feel like CCG will just have the ability to kind of take those grubs and be more active, at least when we're talking about objectives, because they've got, you know, things like the Aesol who can roam on around, and they've also got, you know, double marksman. So I feel like their power level is significantly stronger in those first 14 minutes. But I would say if this game goes to like 30 minutes, I could totally see a world where Corki and Ryze can really be menaces. But CCG have late game menaces of their own. They've got the Kindred, the Jax, and the Aurelion Soul.
I actually think CCG outscale because of Jax Aesol and Kindred, but peak performers, you know, Jarvan, Ryze, good early game combo. Maokai can play the Grubbies fight pretty well. What I want to see peak performers do this game is swap if they're going to match, right? So if you can't lane against the Ashe, then you just swap the AD, because they do have the weak side Maokai that can play the 2v1, 1v2, and he doesn't care about his economy, where Jax does care about the economy. And I also want to see them just match the Grubbies play if CCG opts to swap the Ashe on the Grubbies. So it's kind of like, what do the ADCs do this game? And if peak performance is going to play the macro to take the fights, then they should. But they're not going to play the macro. They should overinvest in the bot side, dive the Jax when CCG is going for first grubs. That's what I would do.
I think shutting down the Jax and the Aurelion still has got to be priority number one coming out here for peak performers, because although you've got a decent response into the Jax, which is the Ryze, who's not only able to clear out the Wiz, but has that ultimate to be able to respond to potentially side lane threats, you don't want to have to rely on that tool, which could potentially be used for other situations, to just respond to a play that you could easily, or not necessarily easily, but you could prevent in those early stages. So you want to see the Maokai, you want to see the Ryze, you want to see the Jarvan utilize some of those lockdown tools, that Rune Prison, that Flag and Drag, to really set Crimson behind. And same kind of goes for Aljum. If you can subjugate these solo lanes early on, then I feel like you set yourself up for a much better chance going into late game.
Yeah, I think Aljun is the insurance policy here, where peak performers kind of have to get it going, right? So we'll see what happens. But I like the matchups. I like the Maokai into Jax. I like the Ryze into Aesol. I even like Corki Rakan into Ashe Braum. I think the lane matchups are good. Kitsuo shouldn't struggle with invades. Maybe Kryra gets the better of him on a couple, but I don't think the economy of jungle is going to matter that much. I think the lanes have enough prio that Kitsuo will have enough opportunity to get his farm, and then let's just see how the fights go, right? But peak performance, let's match, let's play the fights and use our big cooldowns. You know, Maokai ult, Jarvan ult, Rakan ulti. I think it's definitely winnable.
For sure. I'm really definitely looking at Sage Wabe and Robbie Bob to be the big heavy hitters going into this game. And I feel like Robbie Bob very, very much on the receiving end of the bullying in game number one. So this is kind of his chance to not only get revenge on the bullies that held him down all of game one, but to also help his team tie up the series. So I'm hoping that he actually manages to really pull out this Ryze, because this is the first time I think I've ever seen Robbie Bobby pilot this champion that I've heard so many good things about. And Sage Wabe as well. When you're on a champion like the Corki, you expect those big damage kind of initiations along with how much engage you have. So this backline is certainly going to be kind of the star of the show. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm just kind of looking forward to seeing when they take the fights, because they definitely don't want to have to over-index into early game pressure when they know they're potentially outnumbered or in a bad spot, right?
Yeah, I just want to see Kitsuo and Dardoch play through Robbie this game, right? I want to punish the Aesol, I want to punish the Ashe. Trust that Alorum can handle Crimson on the side lane. He did a good job in a worse matchup last game. But I would just get my mid and AD ahead, and then you can play the team fights really easily, right? Kitsuo's your go button. Dardoch is amazing secondary engage. Alorum's amazing secondary engage on these champions. Let's just have a clean pocket that our carries can deal damage, and it'll be a very free game. I actually think they're going to win this one. I think peak performers will win this one, and if CCG wins with a harder comp to play, the series might be cooked.
Yeah, I mean, we saw how easily that game one turned. As soon as CCG got one advantage, they managed to just straight up run away with it. This is definitely, I would say, on all accounts, basically kind of a new generation team. Sneezes, right? You've got players like Crimson, like Spider-Man, like Aojun, who have really had a breakout year of 2024. Crimson in particular, was in the 2023 season, but a lot of people were unsure of how bright his future was going to be. He goes into the Spring Open qualifiers, promotes with CCG, and has really started to make a name for himself. And Kryra most recently, especially toward the latter half of the year, has done the same thing. So when you're going against some of these older players like Alorum and Kitsuo, you can definitely start to see a kind of narrative develop where you've got this younger generation versus these old players who are still trying to really reclaim some of that glory, some of that clout, if you will, and put these youngsters to the sword.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk to Crimson for more than 5 minutes, he's really strong, right? Like, he knows a lot about the game, and if you know anything about his background, it wasn't a surprise that he was a strong tier 3 into tier 2 player, right? So I think he has two brothers that have both played in tier 1 and tier 2, so not very shocking there. Fun like reverse leak, right? So when TFT got an NACL, one of our roster plans that didn't work out because we were in super last minute, right? Well, I'll just tell the story since we're waiting on loading screen. One of our roster plans at the very last minute was to get all three brothers on the team and find a way to make it work. But we were really trying to make that happen, and it just didn't work out because of a few things, But
technically, Crimson has three brothers. He's got Viper, he's got Sniper, and then I believe the oldest one is in like Platinum or something like that. So you could have gone all the way.
Yeah, we could have gone the 4-brother comp, yeah, and then maybe adopted somebody, yeah.
And then you would have
been four brothers and ONAT. That's what we would have done.
You would have gotten because you're called TFT. You would have literally probably gotten like a buff for that. Just brothers was the trait, and maybe something would have happened there, but. I do think that it is interesting to see Crimson's rise as a player because, like you said, he's got two brothers that have really gone to the highest highs that you can as a pro player. And so to see him kind of step in to his own shoes in his own style and potentially, be on the way to matching his other brother's legacy, or legacies rather, that is a really interesting thing that I think a lot of people are both looking forward to and hoping that it happens, myself included.
Oh yeah, we're all rooting for Crimson, but I think I wouldn't count Alorum out in this matchup, right? The old dog can still hunt. I think he's got a good matchup. It'll be a lot of fun, but it looks like we're gonna kick it over in a minute here.
Yep, as we are, like you said, Sneezes, we are ready to go into game number 2. So without further ado, it has been Sneezes and myself to break down this game 2 draft. Now, we're going to send it over to the professionals. Welcome back, TDS and Gordo. Take it away, boys.
Thank you very much, Quacks and Sneezes. We are back for game number 2 on Summoner's Rift. CCG back on blue, Peak Performers back on red, and the bold call already made that Peak Performers will be able to turn it back around. Excited to see this Rise starting to make a little bit more of an appearance, but also you got to be intimidated up against Aojun's Aurelion Soul. I think this is one of the picks that has been the strongest for him throughout the 2024 season.
Isn't that usually permabanned against him?
Yep.
So, well, technically, it's now going to be permaban. So, at the very least, you're going to quote-unquote take it out because of Fearless, but it's still a game where you're playing against risky things, although, that being said, in the previous game, we also played against... Oh, wait, Saga.
Ooh, Sagewabe finding a Trevor here, going to be able to get that stun, but just a little outnumbered here as they've got Robbie Bob already with them, and Kitsuo a little bit faster on the rotation as well. Dardoch will be able to get that knock up, and they really want this first blood, but Kitsuo getting bullied on the other side. He might be forced to flash here, but he's dead anyway. First blood goes to Array, and CCG, they're in the lead again.
And it felt like maybe Peak Performers could turn around, but there's the thing, level 1 actually for champions like the Quirky, like the Rise, even more so for the Jarvan, they are not that valuable in these level 1 skirmishes. If you collapse on one member, even if you find anything, you're not going to have the follow-up where you have consistent damage from the Ashe, consistent damage from the Aurelion Soul, and particularly the passive. from the Brown really making a difference. And I feel like that was just CCG walking forward and making it work out. But it worked out. First blood for the Ashe and no flash for the Jarvan right now.
Yeah, a rough start here for Kitsuo. And we called out that jungle champion pool that Peak Performers have really utilized back in game number 1. They took their loss on the Lee Sin, and now a rough start for the Jarvan. Definitely not what Peak Performers wants to be seeing at this stage. Now Crimson, though, taking a rough trade at level 1 here. Alorum is the first one to tick level 2, and will be able to take that fight up against the Jax, keeping him low and looking to use some of that deceptive early game power that the Maokai top brings to the table. He's got so much sustain, such spam ability, and pretty decent base damage.
Yeah, at least even if bot side it's not that great, they do have a strong top side right now thanks to what Alarim was able to get there. And maybe this opens up a little bit of a window for maybe Kitsuo to try and go for a play up here. If the wave bounces back and Alarim is able to allocate it in a really good spot, then they can try and play around it really well. But so far, this is where they need to go, because right now, bot lane is getting collapsed on. Cryer is stealing both camps from the Jarvan, and I'm not sure if Kitsuo is going to be able to get there on time before Cryer resets. He's going to try and rush there.
Yeah, you see what he's going to be able to do. He doesn't really have priority in mid lane, but does have some strength from Alorum up on the top side, and it doesn't look like anyone's going to come in and rep with him. Cryer actually staying. Yeah, Cryer actually staying in that bottom side jungle. Of course, they don't know this at this stage on the Peak Performers side, so still going to have to path a little cautiously.
Yeah, crucially though, Peak Performers won the gamble there. It's actually going to be Cryer's camp or Cryer's mark spawning on the top side. So at the very least, the control that they have on that side is going to benefit them to maybe try and deny that first mark from the Kindred. They have the control. They probably can try and go for a dive.
All right, going underneath, seeing if they can pick up a kill onto Crimson, but Alorum takes a few too many shots. Now he's stuck on the wrong side, and he might just give the first kill of the game to his opposition. Kitsuo now taking up the wave, trying to find an escape route, but finds himself face to face with Kryra. Where's that mounting dread? Here it comes to slow up the potential target. Kryra going to see if he can finish him on off. Meanwhile, Robbie Bob getting focused down by 2 members in the mid lane. Peak Performers, they don't lose any more fighters, but they do lose out on the play.
Yeah, and at least Kitsuo doesn't die because of the knockup that connects into Kryra, but everything else is not working at all for them. They lose out on that play top side. The only lane that was doing really great against their opponent now ends up losing out and is 0-1 at this point, so the Jax is going to be feeling pretty comfortable. And the Kindred also got her mark, so like, I think Kindred got... So no, I think they only got 1 mark because the other mark probably is the Jarvan, and since they didn't die, didn't get the other one. But really strong at this point anyway. Yeah, only 1 mark.
Now, going to be that first mark over to Kryra, like you said. Just one of several leads that CCG have already amassed for themselves. The first Grubby is going to be spawning here shortly. Kitsuo on the recall. We'll see if Peak Performers think that they can make a challenge for that one. Already those Merc treads completed for Crimson, though. He's really appreciating that he got that early kill, giving him that extra survivability that he needs up against the Maokai.
Yeah, it makes it so that those trades that probably could have been a turret shot or putting you back into a weird spot, now a little bit more comfortable for them, and they are playing it out so well on the side of CCG. The playstyle that they are showing, the control that they are showing, the action that they are showing, but ready to follow up on whatever the team wants. It's such a well-played performance so far, and they are going to try and keep up the first game performance into maybe another dominating level game 2.
Very possibly here. Looking to see if they will be able to keep that momentum going from their first game. Not at quite as massive of a lead as they once were, but certainly off to a good start to be able to achieve it again. There is already those first grubs getting worked on by Kryra, looking like he's going to take those uncontested, as Kitsuo is showing in mid lane, not able to make anything happen up against Aljun. Trevor already cutting him off as he tries to make a path on over, potentially towards that grub pit. He will just have to take a detour back into his own jungle, finding the 1 camp that's up and working on that one, while Kryra says thank you very much for 3 grubs.
Yeah, they get everything they wanted there. 3 more grubs, because in the previous game they also got 3 grubs. And this is something they did in the previous game as well, rotating their bot lane for the first grub spawn. Because of the control that they have, they can do this pretty easy, pretty comfortably actually, and there's barely anything to try and stop it. And then on the other side, it's not like they are collecting much. The dragon didn't die. They didn't get any big value, with Sakiwabe getting a little bit of push time here, and even though Crimson is taking a lot of damage, it's not enough to actually kill the Jax.
No, and it won't be for quite a bit. The Corki's got a lot of that upfront burst, but not enough to work its way through level 6 Jax at this stage, at least not in one rotation. The Dragon is being worked on by peak performers, and they look like they will be able to secure this one no problem. Problem is, and we saw this problem in game number 1, Array is getting fed all of the plates that they can find. He's very likely to get 1 or 2 here. Already has the 1. Will he get a second? Maybe not, with only 3 grubs here, but they're going to keep shoving in these waves. They're going to need backup eventually, and if Kitsuo dares to wander up here, he's going to find himself face-to-face with Kryra. CCG have split the map, and they're using it to funnel gold into Array.
Crimson got it.
Yeah, Crimson got that red buff. Will they be able to close it on out? Here comes Robbie Bob porting in with the Realm Warp. Kitsuo falling so low, though, gets hit by the ultimate from Aojun, and it's just another kill to CCG. Robbery completed, objective secured, and they get a kill while they're at it.
Yeah, they get their objective, they get their kill, and they get to laugh at in the faces of peak performers, because it's not only the play that goes really bad, it's that once again, something that they were so desperately looking for fails, and it means that the game just keeps on snowballing in favor of CCG. Another play going for Array here, and barely any attention put towards topside. The bot lane did collect a couple of plates as well, but the overall gold value is just simply much more in favor of CCG, and there's not a lot that they are trying to make it stop. Or that is working to make it stop.
Exactly, and it's 3 plates to Array now in the top lane. I mean, this issue is just becoming worse, and the fact that with a numbers advantage on the bottom side, peak performers are letting more leads slip away, it's not a great situation for them. They've called over Dardoch now, but I don't think they have the ability to make any kind of play here, especially with Kryra in the area as well. He's kind of just here to try to stem the bleeding, but you might notice there's still bleeding going on. They've lost about half of that additional plate, and these additional waves are not going to make that problem any better, and it's not like peak performers are scraping together anything elsewhere.
Well, it's kind of like when you, if you get your leg caught, if it falls off of your body, it's going to bleed, and you may stop the bleeding a little bit, but it's still going to be bleeding. It's not going to be just stopping out of nowhere, and peak performers is not really finding the opportunity to make that stop completely. So they need to find another angle to either find a play that works out for them, or just simply hold on for a little more, get first item on Robbie Bob, and I think after that point you begin just moving around the map and finding plays. Yes, the mobility is kind of similar between the two of them, but I do think, oh wait, Array, this may be the
that was
play.
an all-in from Alorum, flashed in, forced the cleanse. There's the Nature's Grasp, it's going to connect as well. Dardoch pops the ultimate, it's all in onto Array. Where's the twisting advance? Alorum is in there, and he picks up a return kill. Peak performers are on the board.
Look, if Array survived there, I think peak performers probably just FF, because that was as well as they could have done that, and it almost didn't work out. Credit to CCG though. I think Array and Trevor particularly played that amazingly well, but peak performers finding the kill on the Array, stopping the AD carry from getting stronger, and on the other side, Sakiwabe doing the same thing but much better. And Kitsuo steals the blue buff, so small victories. This is what they needed. Small victories.
Yeah, and the gold lead is not that bad. So the fact that, you know, they at least get the mental lead of saying, okay, we have some plays that are working out. You know, we're playing a game of League of Legends here. We're going blow for blow. That's really what this squad appears to have needed here. But those 6 grubs, they're a big issue. 4 of them already down. Kitsuo wants to get over here and take at least 1. Dardoch, though, sees the collapsing members of CCG and makes the call. We got to get out of there. So they will give over the full 6 grubs to CCG, and the menace towards these outer towers that CCG showed in game number 1, it's going to stay just as true here in game number 2.
Yeah, their turret taking potential here is going to be massive, especially with the Jax. Like, this side lane push from the Jax alone is going to be really, really scary. And they are going to immediately magnify the value of those 6 grubs, taking down this first turret here. And then on the other side of the map, because of the move from Sakiwabe and Dardoch up here, it meant that they're not going to be able to respond accordingly with a turret of their own. Really smart movements by CCG, and a little bit of a slow movement from peak performers. I think they are just one step behind every time, and it means that they are not able able to magnify the value that they can try and get as Alarm takes a turret shot.
Yeah, he's so tanky
Ooh, wait.
though. I mean, he's got this item already completed, and he's got access to his constant sat magic passive. Here comes a 3v1 dive, and I don't think there's a chance for Crimson to survive here. So a nice cross map from the Peak Performers in trade for that turret on the top side. They get themselves a kill, and they're going to try to equalize with a turret on bottom. They're not going to get the first brick gold, but that extra kill going to help to balance things out.
Yeah, and just like we mentioned, immediately as soon as Robbie gets first item, move around the lane, get away from the Aurelion Sol. We don't care about that champion anymore, and you begin impacting the map. First move around, first real kill they are able to get, and now they can try and maybe collapse onto Alvarim, though Ash Arrow fails.
All right, Alorum nearly hit by Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but will be able to dodge out of that one, and that does mean he manages to get out without issue. Now, what exactly is going to be the move here from CCG? As they've indexed a lot of members down here. There are even more available from Peak Performers. Alorum does have the TP. They can try to force the play here. Alorum in route. Crimson joining the fray as well. It's going to be a full-on 4-on-4 Peak Performers on the front foot here. They've got Sagewabe in their back pocket. Aojun coming in as well. 5 members from each team arrived to the bottom river for a 13-minute fight. Now here comes Kitsuo leading the charge on in. Going to pop that Cataclysm. Dardoch gets the knock up on all of them. But Enchanted Crystal Arrow, it stops Sagewabe in his tracks, and Peak Performers just get melted. CCG 2-0 up in the fight already. Gonna be able to guide Trevor out to safety, and now looking for the redive. Kryra does still have access to Lamb's Respite. They can play around that to try to make this play happen. They go underneath. Alorum the first one to drop. Crimson tanking up the turret. Robbie Bob drops as well. Sagewabe the next focus, and that is an unofficial ace. 5-0. CCG outplay on all fronts.
As well as they could have played that, they get every kill possible. Nobody dies in the process. They will get another turret in their favor before plates are falling, and this is just extremely dominant and powerful from the side of CCG. They are going to try and recoup something from the side of Peak Performers, but they are not going to be able to. It's just simply way too late for that. And this is where you see the value from the Azul. Pretty good positioning there with the fire spread, with the Dragon's Breath, plus the Star, as well as just the ultimate position inside of the Tribush. That fight lasted between the Tribush and the Pixel Bush of the river. That means that as long as you're able to push them into the Tribush, Aurelion Sol values goes from, let's say, at 50 to 100. Because everyone is going to be eating all of that damage and all of the value from the Aurelion Sol in the same place, and in the process Array is untouched, an arrow comes by, it goes away, and the Jax also was able to hit multiple targets in a really good spot. The 80 carry shining in that fight, and maybe Alarum getting collapsed on here.
Oh, who's collapsing on who, though? Yeah. Dardoch is in the area, gonna knock back away Kryra. The answer is Alorum. Alorum flashes over the wall. But here comes the rest of Peak Performers. They want to stage a challenge for their red buff. Here comes Nature's Grasp, going to root up both underneath the wall. Here comes Dardoch, knocking both up with the quickness. Answer Spike coming on across, going to try to keep Kryra up for as long as possible. Quadruple knockup from Trevor, right into the ultimate from Aojun. And it's CCG manufacturing the fight once again. Aojun going to continue to rain through his damage. Does get a little close to Alorum, but it won't be able to be turned around. It's a double kill back over to Crimson. It's a 3-for-4 fight. Peak Performers keep it close, but CCG wins out again.
It almost felt impossible to cut down the tree. It worked out at the end, but the team fight value once again from CCG is just massive, and that's a fight that starts with Kryra dying immediately. But look at that, 4-man from the start, from the falling meteorite from the Aurelion Sol, plus the stun from Crimson, perfectly played there. Important that Robbie Bob is also on the side there to try and equal things out, because Alorum survives long enough, but the damage from Robbie Bob was important as well. But the longer those fights continue like this, the more value that CCG is going to keep on getting, because they're already ahead in gold, and they are going to keep on getting ahead if they're able to get fights like this. Plus Aurelion Sol will get his realize, and that's where the fights are going to become even harder.
Yeah, I do think there were a couple of shutdowns probably picked up in the fray there, but losing so much around the map, having to lose out on that Rift Herald, which is now almost certainly going to get thrown down in mid. I mean, we saw CCG execute a solid plan to take out all the outer turrets in game number 1, and it looks like they're going to do the same thing this time. pick up that Rift Herald at 14. They've already got both of the outers on the sides. They're going to dump this one in mid. Though this time, Peak Performers do have a full 5-man squad ready to defend. They're going to have to forfeit the outer, but now can make a stand in the inner. Enchanted Crystal Arrow comes on through. They're going to focus everything they can onto Alorum, and they cut down the tree. Peak Performers just do not have the time to stage a defense. CCG move too quick.
That was so funny, but so well done. They locked down Alorum as long as possible because after all the CC chains went down, they also had the Rift Herald, instead of crashing into the turret, crash into Alorum. That meant that he was going to keep on being stunned as long as possible, and they are able to cut down the 3 and get the kill at the end. Really nice play. They do lose out on the crash though of the turret, and it meant that the turret is going to still be much more healthier, but it's still really nice for CCG. They get more gold and they can begin setting up for this dragon fight coming up soon.
Indeed they can. Clearing out waves in mid now is Robbie Bob, or sorry, that's Sagewabe actually. And just trying to make sure that they're going to be able to stage a fight for the next objective, but things are just going sideways across the board for the Peak Performers here. CCG now do find themselves at a substantial gold lead. They're going to try to make a move onto this top outer turret. Alorum getting collapsed on the side, and his prospects in this fight are just not good, especially with Trevor there at his back. So they're going to be able to pick up the tree. Aljun just stacking up with that Breath of Light the whole way through. Going to donate the kill to Kryra, and CCG get another.
So Crimson maybe here alone, but probably not going to get collapsed. And I like that Aljun does keep the kill there, not because it's not good to take the kill as Aurelion, but more so because Kryra needs a little bit extra value here to try and spike as quickly as possible, where Aljun, as long as he gets his second item here, his value as in terms of utility is already going to be high. Plus he's stacking his passive, so that's still going to be adding up the long run, but he's going to keep on getting stronger, where you want to try and get Kryra as strong as possible, as quickly as possible. Oh, teleport.
TP being channeled. This is Alorum or Robbie Bob. It's Alorum as they're going to come in on the side. Dardoch gets multi-man knock up. They're going to be able to melt down Aljun early, and this could be the fight that Peak Performers were waiting for. It's a TP in from Crimson. Immediately Kitsuo going to pop the Cataclysm, getting the fight started, but fighting it front to back. Look at Array continuing to fire away the whole way through, untouched in the fight, stepping up, but Sagewabe turns it back with Robbie Bob on the damage. It's a double kill back over to Robbie. A 3 for 3. Peak Performers make a stand and make it even.
Yeah, but that was a Seraph's div there. The shield from the Seraph brought Robbie so healthy, so much health or so much shielding back into that fight, and it made it so that Array kind of put himself into a bad spot. The Array's position there could have been perfectly fine if Robbie Bob dies immediately, but the Seraph shield probably caught him off guard and he wasn't able to turn around. This teleport play, not bad. I really love the flash engage here by Dardoch because it stops the fly away from the Aurelion, and as soon as they commit onto the Aurelion Soul, taking out his damage and utility, the fight turns much more PP favored. That being said, they still have so much more gold than them, 280 carries that can take down targets really effectively, and the Lamp's Respite that makes it so that even if you re-engage, you're not going to be able to kill multiple targets. But here, even though Array walked forward, that shield difference there probably caught Array off guard, didn't kill Robbie Bob, and it meant that Sagewabe could immediately turn around and get the kill. Ooh, Crimson.
Now looking for the pick here on towards the Jackson. Look at the damage output that Robbie Bob brings here. Looking like they want to take the fight anyway. Trevor stepping on up. They're going to look to focus in onto Aljun. Gets knocked out of position. Takes a big chunk from Robbie as Alorum is in there. Still looking to keep them CC'd up, but will be focused down. Enchanted Crystal Arrow connects on the Dardoch. They're going to look to make that follow-up pick. Kitsuo's the next on the menu. Robbie Bob trying to guide his frontliners out to safety. Will only be able to save one of them, but the Baron is up next. TDS, and they're going to look to secure it for CCG. Trevor just gets one shot though, and Sagewabe is here for the backup. Crimson is incredibly low. This could be effectively a 3-on-3, and CCG realize, hey, the whole game might be on the line here. Let's back off.
Yeah, like the disengage there. You don't need to force the Baron buff at this point. They already killed Trevor as well, so part of your protection is down. And also, Aljun just came back with no flash. So you need to at the very least be a little bit more controlled. Obviously, this does mean that Peak Performers is going to last long enough that it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's turning into a point where both teams are realizing that there's slight chances that are going to be given up, and you have to be extra careful about them. As wow, June, maybe that here.
Dardoch, he's popping ultimate. There's a Realm Orb coming in from Robbie, and there he goes, striking again, picking up his 6th of the game. And this is what turned the whole game on a dime here, TDS. Those 3 kills going over to Robbie in the last skirmish, one of them being a 700 gold shutdown on Aojun. It's injected so much money into the Peak Performers mid laner.
3 items at this point for Robbie Bob, 6-1, 2,000 gold ahead
by a
of
lot.
Aojun. Yeah, he is really, really strong. That being said, he is really strong, but he also is not as tanky as he probably would have liked to be. Like, he is going to take the time a little bit to die because of the Seraphs, but if he gets locked down enough, like, he can get killed really, really quickly. And I think the important part as well is not only that Robbie Bob is really strong here, but that Aldurim is able to tank a lot of the damage. So if they're able to play together as effective as possible, they can make a team fight that lasts really, really long, get multiple rotations of damage from the Rise, and also multiple rotations of healing from the Maokai into making it a favorite fight for Peak Performers. But the gold is still in favor of CCG, and multiple members have a lot of gold.
Absolutely. CCG still have the ability to out-execute on these plays, but they keep losing members on the side. It's going to continue to be a big issue. Crimson, with no flash, can't do anything to get outside of that Cataclysm as long as Robbie keeps his distance, and that's another kill, another shutdown to Robbie Bob, but the Baron is being worked on. Robbie Bob is TPing in. They're going to lose the Worm, but can they win the fight afterwards? Smited down by Kryra. First kill of the fight going on over as Trevor falls. Here comes a big ultimate being dropped by Aojun, but he's out of mana, and he's out of chances as Robbie Bob goes legendary. Recall being channeled by Array. Gonna be able to get that one off in time, but Kryra will not be so lucky. Locked down by 5 Peak Performers. Another shutdown to Robbie, and the numbers on the map favor PP. 4 are down for CCG.
The game is 120% on Robbie Bob. If he can carry them, this is a Peak Performers game. But if he dies, the game is done. Like, really, it's really the difference on what Robbie Bob can do and what he can't. They get the pick here onto Crimson, really smart rotation that they go for. I think they were willing to sacrifice the Baron buff for the ensuing fight, which I think it's a fair enough sacrifice. If it works out, you only get 1 Baron buff on the other team, which is, I think, a fair enough sacrifice. But if it fails, you may give more members the Baron buff and even potentially lose a fight here. But Robbie Bob, a lot of damage. Both Array and Crimson and Kryra probably not in the best position to try and make a fight happen here. And then Aojun trying to go back to maybe salvage the members from getting collapsed on, throws a star, but the star is not the best. Is not in the best position there to try and make a stop from happening, and it meant that it kind of goes to waste now for the next dragon fight.
Definitely does. And now going to be a stand for that next dragon. This could be sole point for Peak Performers, and demonstrated some real good capacity for these team fights, especially when they get the picks to start them off. Robbie Bob is just a menace in the side lane, but Enchanted Crystallero comes through, connects on a Dardoch. He does try to dash out to safety. He makes the space, and he will stay alive. He's going to be able to get in there. He didn't even use the quickness. It wasn't available, so he's going to have that for the fight as well. CCG trying to make a pick happen, but the only thing that's really stuck here is that they don't have Enchanted Crystallero anymore.
Well, they did blow cleanse on Sagawabe, so now there's not going to be that safety net for the Corki. They are going to be getting this dragon for free as well, it seems, because Robbie Bob is over on the top side, and right now the only one that is going to stop him is Trevor. So, dragon for free and also a cleanse taking down. How many marks does Kindred have at this point? I think probably 4. He actually is at 10. Okay, yeah, I'm a little bit off on that.
That's a lot.
A little bit off on that, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and that's exactly 3 upgrades, right? The first one's at 4, and then you get every 3 after that. So on his 3rd range upgrade here comes a big ultimate out of Aojun, going to lock down Kitsuo, but he gets away with the sliver as well. Here comes Crimson on the flank, trying to get the fight started. They're going to lock him down twice over with Olorum and Dardoch, but it's not going to be enough to take him out after the stasis is done for. Realm Warp to safety. Robbie Bob playing ambulance for the rest of the squad as they get away with blinking health bars. Olorum the only one to fall.
Yeah, but that was 2 flashes from both Robbie Bob and Kitsuo, plus also Alorim getting killed in that position. They were attempting so hard for a mid lane turret, quoting LS 350 gold that probably weren't going to change as much, and it meant that now CCG once again get a little bit of the control back into the game. I don't really think they need that mid lane turret as much as they probably thought they would, but they also probably thought that they had enough time to take it down and run away as quickly as possible, because we need to remember they have run warp. So it does make it so that some potential plays are much the time that it takes to make some potential plays is much different compared to other games where you don't have the run warp from the Rise.
Absolutely, it does make the difference there. Look at Dardoch on the cutoff here. He finds Aojun, but Robbie is not here.
Nobody's
by the way,
here. Yeah.
The realm war play is not happening. Although here's a TP from Alorum. They're going to try to sacrifice Dardoch. He gets out again. Ooh. No, he will drop. And Kryra has found Alorum on the side. Peak Performers have gotten a little too cute with it. Like their plans are unraveling in front of them. They lose 2, and Kitsuo might be joining them. Trevor already finding one slow. Connects another one. More. For the stun, but getting kited out by Sagewabe. Another Winter's Bite finds its mark, but he will be able to jump over the ultimate channeled by Aojun. Finds Kitsuo. A third member of Peak Performers is down, and CCG have an opening to wreak havoc on the base.
And in mid lane, Crimson is pushing by himself. Robbie Bob comes here, but they are going to push topside. Oh, Crimson may be dead.
Robbie showing the damage that he brings to the table there, but Kryra coming in on the cutoff. Dardoch is here for the backup. He's respawned and he's looking for more action. The top lane inhibitor is the prize that CCG earned for that sequence of picks. And it's going to be all that they get here. Peak Performers trying to see if they can get somebody on the way out. Alorum not slowing down here, taking the Hex Gate to see if he can find a target, but CCG, they're already backed on away. Look at Robbie Bob. He's betting it all here. A deep TP. Alorum gets interrupted out of using a Hex Gate for himself. He keeps getting it interrupted. The singularity, it lasts too long. He can't get through it.
Oh, no.
Oh, Peak Performers.
The teleport play was a smart idea there. The problem is that because Kryra killed the Scuttercraft, they actually see Robbie Bob coming from the flank, so they can play according to that now because they actually have vision from the Rise. Then after that, it's really easy to run around him. I will say Alorum canceling the Hexgate twice, probably not the best thing to happen, because that could have at the very least meant Trevor dies. But the rest of the members escape there because of the lack of vision, and with Baron Bob in 20 seconds, you can try and keep a little bit of the control still in your favor. That being said, top lane inhibitor down, top lane inhibitor turret down, and it's what can PP find once again? It's all on the back of Robbie Bob. We keep saying this, but it's the reality. Whenever Robbie Bob is not involved, it feels like Peak Performers doesn't have the strength to fight or win even.
Absolutely. And now the Baron on the menu once again. Dardoch going to be the one face checking. Has the ability to dash on out. And over the wall goes Kryra, looking to be able to work on this
super quickly.
It goes down so fast with 2 marksmen plus an Aurelian Soul. But Kitsuo's here. Trevor's not going to be able to stop him. Enchanted Crystal Arrow comes out, stuns him up for the time being. Not going to be long enough. It's down below 2k. Yeah. Kitsuo's already retreated. It's going to be a smite for Kryra and a Baron buff back over to CCG. No follow-up fight this time.
Yeah, it's a 5-man Baron Bob this time around, and it also means that they will have 35 seconds to reset, go back into the map, and get this soul point, Hextech soul point. It's tilting even more in favor of CCG now. Sun just completed as well for the Jax. You also have the 3.5 items of the Aurelion, the 3.5 items of the Kindred, 3.5 items of the Ashe, and it's only Robbie Bob. Robbie Bob is the one that is 4.5. That's it. Everyone else is on a little bit of a budget. Well, actually, Sagewabe has 3 items as well, but the rest of the members are on a budget.
Definitely. Moving on down towards this next dragon spawn now will be soul point. Whoever's able to secure it. Aojun flying out to safety before he finds himself picked on off, and Alorum and Dardoch leading the charge here for the Peak Performers, looking to find an opportunity to jump in. Dardoch sends it all, going in for Aojun. Trevor does his best to create space quickly. Fisher, Dardoch going to be the first one to fall down. No. They work through Alorum so quickly. Robbie snapped on the backside by the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Flashes back out to safety. Stars are low, but Peak Performers are not able to finish them off. Finally, Robbie going to be able to take down one, but he will drop to Array on the opposite side. And Crimson is in the base. One Nexus turret falls. Sagewabe, the only one left alive, but cannot find a space to recall. Meanwhile, while Crimson is just ending the whole damn game. A valiant effort from Peak Performers, but CCG are on match point.
Damn Crimson taking away the fun of the game. We were all excited watching the match on the side, and then Crimson by himself pushing on the side. Split pushers, man. They always do this. But CCG did it again. I will say, as far as when it meant for Peak Performers, when Robbie Bob is in touch, like when he's left to himself, he will be a menace. Like 35.4k of damage, consistent value all around the map, finding peaks, finding damage, finding plays for the team. And it just felt like the rest of the team weren't able to follow up on Robbie Bob trying to carry the game. Where on CCG's side, everyone was doing their part to be able to carry the game in a way.
Absolutely. And Robbie Bob with a massive performance, but not enough to take them over the finish line, and maybe a little bit too late in the equation, as there was already so much claimed in the early game that got to continue to spill on over. All those outer turrets being taken down, all the grubs being secured, the Rift Herald being there to continue to force the issue in mid lane. All of that happens before Robbie Bob is truly able to come online, and we need to see more life out of Peak Performers in that stage of the game if they want to be able to find some wins in this series.
Yeah, the problem is that we're reaching the point of the series that your back is against the wall. Now, every win will, like, every lose you get means that you're out of the series. Like, you're eliminated from the ACL. And every win means that you're just one step closer to maybe turning it around, but not necessarily saving yourself. And also, with Fearless, we need to remember that champions are out now. Like, this was Robbie Bob's rise. One of the champions that he can play really, really well. Previous game, we had the Syndra down for Robbie Bob as well, and the pool is going to get tighter and tighter the more we go in with those champions taken away. So it's important to notice how much value will Robbie Bob get when he's forced into a much lesser pool that he usually has access to.
Yeah, we'll have to find out what the answer is going to be in that situation. Let's send it back over to the analyst desk. Sneezes and Quacks, let's talk about what we just saw.
The notorious ROB Big Bobby Robbie not able to pull it out this time. Rise may be a magician, but wasn't able to work magic in game number 2. So Peak Performers, I mean, a lot better, I would say, of a game than what we saw in game number 1. I believe that is a pretty low bar, but we saw more life from them in general. So I mean, if there is a chance for, I certainly think that there is a chance for them to come back in game 3. If people are down, then I wouldn't say are down on them. I say I don't think you should be out just yet.
I thought this was a much better showing. Obviously, they didn't pull it out. First, I think we're going to look at a dive here. The thing I want to emphasize that kept Peak Performers in the game is is this dive? Ugh. But okay, I thought it was the other dive, but that's fine. So when you're down, it's like French cooking, right? One of the most important ingredients in French cooking: butter, butter, and butter. When you're down in a game, when you make a play like this that does not go well, you got to cross map, cross map, cross map. And I think Peak Performers did a nice job cross mapping to keep the game even. They just lost a couple of these team fights later on that, the Ace Soul just made it really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the cross map analysis from the side of Peak Performers was a lot better in game number 2, but the kind of big, I would say, thing that prevented them from winning game number 2 or really taking that game by the horns was them just kind of overforcing. I mean, we saw it in that dive. They would oftentimes look for a lot of these really audacious plays that they weren't necessarily, prepared to do, positioned well to do. They would throw themselves at CCG, and CCG would retaliate. And I mean, we saw this in game number 1. It was another issue that I think we didn't necessarily touch as much on, for those replays and for that post-game analysis, but it is still there, and it was a lot more prevalent in game number 2. I think that was definitely the big reason why Peak Performers were never really able to reel back in this game, despite Robbie Bob having so many pop-off moments. And I do think another really big thing were those grub plays, right? I feel like the strategy
that swaps are killing them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Peak Performers just have no real response to it, right? They get 6 grubs every time, and this time around, I feel like it was almost more punishing that they got 6 grubs because they had things like the Jacks, right? These bigger, more prevalent side lane threats were available in game number 2. two, whereas they weren't really ready in game number one. And then, the side lane was a big thing, but then also were the team fights. And I think there were a couple that really broke this game open, particularly the one that we're going to see in a few seconds here. A very extended team fight, but one that I think we saw CCG play very, very well. So both teams kind of a war of attrition for a little bit, kind of dividing themselves. And then Kitsuo decides to break that line, goes on in, and initially you're thinking, okay, it's a good Cataclysm. They're all locked in there. But the big thing that I think prevents peak performers from pushing onward is that black hole from Aojun. The amount of space that is created with that spell alone prevented these three backliners from following up from the engage that the Jarvan went for. And so now they're left to the wolves. They're left under their tower. They get picked on off, and CCG managed to, again, kind of fatten their lead, which they have been really good at, not just in this game, but in this series. They get one little advantage, and it feels like they kind of live life on the edge with it, but for the most part, are able to take it to that next step.
Yeah, Crimson did a great job with the counter-strike. Trevor did a great job. They're disengaging really well, like you said, and they did a nice job, like, counter-punching, and then playing the dive more aggressively, poking, but not taking aggro, like, really clean. So I thought that was pretty much the game, right? It was, even after 6 grubs, it was still an even game. It was like 100 gold lead for CCG. When the fight like that happens, it's just, tragedy. You can't do much from there, right?
Yeah, and then, I mean, tragedy was kind of the name of this last team fight, this last replay that we're going to get into. It really felt like every single team fight was just, I would say that it was like 5% unlucky for the side of peak performers.
I think just compositionally, right? Like it's that you have an engage versus a disengage comp, and if you can play the disengage, where one comp counters the other, right? Dardock's going in, Alarm's going in, Robbie's going in, but we're gonna see big Asol ult, big Kindred ult, Ashe is free hitting, untouched. Ashe arrow hits Robbie. No counterplay here, right? Kitsuo doesn't have the damage to kill the Ashe. Look how unthreatened Ashe is this fight. It's just so free. And I think it's just the compositional difference of having more range, having the tools to disengage, like the Braum, like the Asol, where you can actually just weather the storm and then you deal more damage.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to what we were saying. I feel like that last team fight was certainly an overforce. That was the Hail Mary, if ever I've seen one, because not only are you going for a team fight that you aren't positionally really ready to take, but you're also literally sacrificing your base, because we saw Crimson on that mini-map. He just ended the game off of that. So it really feels like peak performers are rushing things a little too much. They're trying to make too many things happen in the early game. And as we saw, the early game wasn't their strongest suit. It was Robbie Bob in the mid to late game. That was when they really had a chance at coming back. So if they just slow down a little bit, let the game kind of come to them and play off of their spikes, I feel like they can take a game. I really feel like this series is still within peak performers' ballpark sneezes. And I think if they just kind of fix this overforcing issue, as well as get a response to the grub plays that CCG keep making, they can take it, honestly.
I want to see a swap, right? I think CCG is the better team. They've shown they're the better team through 2 games. I think it's going to be a 3-0, but peak performers, I want to see a swap. Get your AD out of this matchup. Array's been feasting. It's been too difficult in the bot lane, and you have the best weak side AD left in ACL, or a top laner left in ACL. You have Alarm. He can handle the 1v2. He'll probably get 2 kills off the dive. Like, just play the lane swap. I think if you can get through the lane swap and then play a gold advantage grubs fight, you'll be in much better shape. But let's see the 3rd game draft. So again, going back to red side, all 3 games red. They preferred red through the regular season. Most teams are preferring blue side. CCG loves blue side. I want to see what's available. No Ashe, no Ezreal. Those are big champions for Array. Varus is out. I'm wondering what AD is up left, because there B1 ADC is on the table. Maybe Kindred is an option, or Callista, excuse me. Champs always get me. Callista is an option. I'm curious. It'll be interesting. We're really slow on the bans here. I think these guys are really thinking. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if it started yet, but and then mid lane, like you said, mages have been heavy. They haven't started draft. It's chill. Mages have been heavy. These are all Robbie's champions. The big champion that's left between both our mid lane players is Silas and Galio. both these guys play Silas Galio. It was big in Worlds. ACL has been kind of copying Worlds meta even after a bunch of patches. I want to see, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Silas versus Galio, like Chovy Faker mirror matchup. It'd be super interesting.
I also do think there is a decent chance that maybe Robbie Bob decides to go for something like the Ahri. I mean, it's one of his most played champions as well. So maybe if he wants to open up some pick tools for Kitsuo, who likes to play a lot of those pick junglers as well, or really make use of a lot of that CC, as we saw from game number 1 with the kind of Lee Sin Syndra comp. That is also open and available. But yeah, my biggest concern is peak performers on this red side, because we talked about how important it is to get access to that.
Very nice. Kalista Dan was very smart. I like that a lot.
Yep. And so we just fired away through the bans, honestly. And CCG, yeah, going to take that Ivern. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And probably just going to slam down some other really, really strong AD carries, potentially put an ADC in the mid lane as well. Or, I mean, even Ivern honestly pairs up really nicely with the Silas. You're constantly in the team fights. You have very, prevalent extended trading patterns. And there's the Ambessa at the last second. Yeah.
Bessa, okay, Azir, nice. Again, another Robbie champion that's been left. Yeah,
Yep.
Robbie's Azir is very good. And one of the best blinds remaining. Yeah, I like it a lot. And so far, at least, peak performers have the range advantage, which will be the first time they've had that this series.
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly a difficulty. I think in game number 2, it's just so hard for Robbie to get past a lot of these zone tools from the side of CCG, because he had such short range on the rise. So I certainly think Azir will be helpful with that. And also, it kind of fits into the same niche as Rise, where you're just a late game hyper carry. So again, if they can slow their roll, give Robbie time to scale on up, potentially just shove him in a side lane for the first 20 minutes, then I think they'll be in really, really good shape. But again, my big concern comes in the fact that they are on red side. They don't have easy access to the grubs. So they have got to make sure that they have something drafted that can really provide some of that zone control, can threaten CCG for stepping up. They need something with pick. Azir doesn't really provide that. Wukong provides that in, I would say, short little bursts. When he has level 6, you can really punish people out of position. But I'm really looking at something like a Nautilus, something in that support role that can really just separate somebody from the rest of CCG and get them an early, potentially numbers advantage up toward that side.
It's been really tough that Kitsuo has been blinding most of the series, because Kryra has really taken advantage. And I think the Lilia counter pick is better than the Sejuani who's hovering. It's much more difficult for Wukong again. So I think the peak performance jungler has kind of been in a tough spot this series. Kryra's been playing really well. I think he's outplayed Kitsuo for sure, but the drafting has not helped, right? It's been, they've kind of been taking advantage. I think Ambessa Lilia is a really interesting topside, and Xerath, a very classic Azir counter, an old school Azir counter. So really interesting cook from CCG. If you're up 2-0 in a series, you have the room to cook. You can't burn it too much. Worst case scenario, you get a free game. So I love it. Let's do it. And what did I say about range advantage, right? You shoot the range advantage right back. Lilia, Xerath. Good luck.
Yeah. And a lot of magic damage as well, which is very difficult for Wukong to deal with, because I believe his stone skin only gives you armor. So you don't actually have counters against some of those magic damage champions. You don't have the sustainability that you would if CCG decided to go more bruiser heavy up toward that top side. So I like what they're cooking so far. Yeah, the Jhin is...
I don't love the Jhin. I low-key think it's a bad champion, but there's no tanks on CCG, and they can only pick one because support, top's already gone, jungle's already gone. So it's not a bad angle, and they're just going to double ban ADCs. So double ban the best laning champions into the Jhin, or the best DPS champions, because Jhin is generally low DPS. He's more of a poke, all-in champion. So I think they just need to ban out the hyperscaling champs and hope that CCG doesn't have a really big cook, right? Like, I'd worry about a Ziggs or something, but there's already a lot of AP on CCG. So it's probably going to be Jinx Zeri or Jinx Kaisa, but we'll see.
I mean, if CCG really wanted to cook here, I wouldn't mind if they maybe went absolutely crazy in game number 3 and blocked something like a Draven.
Oh, Raids Aphelios is quite good. Although I hear from Aphelios mains, Aphelios is terrible right now, so...
I haven't seen an Aphelios in a really long time, so I feel like
nobody's playing it, and all the Aphelios mains are off of it, so it tells me it's bad. But Array's really good on Aphelios, so you never know.
Yep. I think Array has a few options here. He could go for, I think something like a Zeri if he wants a more hyper carry-esque champion, but you don't have a lot of engage with you as well. So that's kind of the big concern. Draven as well, unless you draft something that can really be a meat shield, which you don't have minus the Ambessa, who you don't expect to be linked up with, within the first few minutes of the game. I find it difficult. So there's a few options for CCG, but dare I say none of them are perfect.
I like Kaisa, I like Zeri, and I like Sivir. I don't know if they're going to go Sivir or not, but the Trundle. So we're banning 2 Alorm Classics, which is the Urgot and the Trundle. Those are like Alorm specialty champions. So, okay, the Renekton. Yeah, we're just going to go standard. Oh, Sion. Okay, another an Alorm, weak side tank. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see solo kills in this matchup. I would not be shocked.
No,
I have no idea what the best matchup looks like. Speaking, okay, please cook Alorm. I love it.
I don't like this.
No, I do. He's very good on Pantheon. I worked with Alorm on TFT. He has people think of him as like a tank player, right? But he has like 3 or 4 champions that are just like super spicy. It was the Nico, Pantheon, Urgot, and Trundle, and those are like his spicy, interesting picks. When he gets the good matchup, it's really OP. It also could be Dardark Pantheon, but I don't think Pantheon support is real right now.
Yep.
I'm not sure about the MF.
I think if you pair it up with the Rel, I was gonna say. I was gonna say you need to pair it up with something that has can kind of lock them all in place for a little bit. So I think Rel was definitely the good option. You could have also gone for something like a Nautilus here and there. But I think Rel is really good. You want to group everybody up, not just for the Misfortune Ultimate, but also for the Lilia to get that max sleep. And I do like the peak performers actually going for the Nautilus. I still like the pick tools, especially when you've got a champion like Pantheon. You've got a lot of lockdown if you can find one of those immobile carries on CCG. So it's actually going to be the Bardock coming in here for game number 3. So probably going to see a lot of attention toward that top side. We said we wanted fights toward the Grub, so having the Wandering Caretaker with you wander toward the top side, it's definitely not a bad look, but I do worry about its efficiency, and leaving Jhin on an island and just kind of letting Misfortune have her way in the laning phase could be dangerous.
Hard counter to Xerath, hard counter to MF. Both those champions have to hold still and root themselves to ult. I think it's really cool that we get the best anti-root champion, right, in the Bard. I love the Pantheon into Ambessa matchup. I'm just assuming it's good because Alorm's picking it as a counter pick, right? And I trust Alorm on these kind of things. But I don't think Jhin is a good champion. I also don't think MF is a good champion. So we've kind of picked 2 weaker bot lanes. MF has to hit the ult to be effective, and we'll see. There's a very skillful composition from CCG. They have some range, but peak performance have engage, and they have the tools to deal damage, right? If Azir can get a flank, if Wu can get a flank, if Bard can hit a big ulti, if Jhin can poke down with his ulti, there is an option. So we will see.
And I think the really big carry that I'm looking at for CCG this game is definitely going to be Kryra on this Lilia, because I mean, this is a guy that we have seen, his most popular champions are Ivern, Vi, Skarner, Maokai, and Wukong. Mostly all facilitators, right, who want to play for either team fighting or want to play to just assist their team in various points of the game. So to see him go on a more selfish playstyle like the Lilia, which we know he can do. I mean, he's played other really, high priority selfish carry champions before, like the Graves, but it's not as common. Right, so we saw him do really well on the Kindred. Now it's his time again to go on the Lilia, and I would say this is a pretty good comp to go Lilia into. You've got a decent amount of backup with things like the Ambessa along with the Rel, so you've got plenty of cover. You've got the ability to kind of outplay a lot of these team fights, especially if Alorm uses that W unwisely to not root you. So there's a lot of variance to go in for this jungle matchup, but I think it's going to be really on Kryra to make the most of this character and carry his team toward that finish line, because they're only 1 game away, Sneezes.
Yeah, I think the Kryra pick's really strong. I'm going to be honest, I'm retired. I have no idea what Ambessa does. I haven't played the game, read the patch notes, nothing. So I'll be interested to see this character outside of the context of Arcane. I don't know the matchup at all. I'm just trusting Alorm's counter pick here, but maybe Crimson just hard pops off and dunks everybody. We'll see.
I will say one key thing to remember about Ambessa is decent laning phase, unstoppable late game. This character, once they get 3 to 4 items, is a raid boss. inside of a raid boss. So that's definitely, I think, the kind of part of the game where CCG are really looking to go all gas, no brakes once you get, those 3 items on the Misfortune, the Xerath, the Lilia, the Mbessa. That's really when they can start to win out in this game. And coincidentally, it's around the time when Pantheon starts to fall off. Alarm is definitely on a timer with this pick. So it's going to be up to, I would say, Kitsuo, Alorum, and I would throw Dardoch in there as well to really get the ball going toward that top side, get those grubs, secure that side of the map, and shove out Kryra from resources in his own jungle.
Yeah, I think that'll be difficult though, because mid prio is not going to be there, right? Xerath is going to auto push mid, and Robbie doesn't have a ton of answers on this champion, right? It's a very difficult pick for Azir to manage. So I think it's kind of a tough position. The side lanes are very good for peak performers, but mid jungle is pretty weak. Double counter pick is really tough. So we'll see how it goes, but I think I'm leaning CCG this one just because mid jungle's too advantageous for CCG.
I agree with that. And I also just kind of feel like peak performers' comp is a little too difficult to get off the ground. Like, I do think if Alorum can get ahead, it is a much better game for them at the end of the day. But it's a bigger if than if Mbessa gets a lead in the early game. And I think the same kind of goes for the Jhin. I think if Sagewabe falls behind at all in this game, he is going to get bullied to no end. He's likely already locked into taking that cleanse and being more of a defensive player in the laning phase. So limiting him even more from what he can actually do is really going to set this Jhin behind. And if you can set both the Jhin and the Pantheon behind, it really is only on Robbie Bop to be that big late game hyper carry, similar to what we saw in game number 2. And the result of game number 2 was for CCG Esports.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of feeling like CCG's just played better, right? The swaps have been better, their macro play's been better. They've gotten 12 out of 12 grubs, right? It's pretty tough. But if peak performance is going to win it, it's going to be laning phase, right? Alorum kind of outlaned Crimson last game, even on the Maokai. Robbie was up CS into Aljun. I think I want to see lane dominance from peak performers that they can snowball into a good early game fight, right? Or just commit to the bit, give them 6 scrubs again and stack Drakes, but then you have to fight third Drake. Like, the biggest problem with peak performers is they've gotten 2 Drakes twice and then they were not in a position to fight third Drake. You should just commit to your Drake stack and then be willing to fight the third Drake and save your conditions for third Drake. So
I mean, it almost feels like the moment that CCG, like you said, around that third dragon, are linking up as a team, we're kind of out of the laning phase. Once they start to be a unit as 5 members, peak performers are just too far behind in gold. They don't have the positioning to fight for those objectives. So it's going to be on them to link up quicker, get together, and really, own certain parts of the map. You've got 2 immobile characters in Aljun and Array with the Xerath and the Misfortune that you can punish for being out of position, and a lot of CC with it as well. Alorum's ultimate could be really useful for catching some of those members out. The question is, can they utilize those tools and get themselves an advantage around that third dragon before it necessarily even spawns?
Yeah, I think it's that's what CCG's game plan has been, is build a big lead through the early game, and better macro on the grubbies. But yeah, it looks like we're about to kick over. We'll see. Does CCG complete the 3-0, or is it going to be a reverse sweep angle for peak performers?
Yep, peak performers, their backs are against the wall. In CCG, they can see the lights above. They can see their next step in the lower bracket run right around the corner. All they've got to do is round it and take that one final step. So we are going to hop into game number 3. Take it away, Gordo and TDS. Good luck, boys.
Thank you very much, Quacks. Welcome back, everybody, to Summoner's Rift for game number 3. CCG looking to complete the 3-0 sweep. Peak performers looking to begin a journey to a reverse sweep. Does look like it's going to be a little bit of a push towards the top side here at level 1.
Oh, they want to play. I think Hitsu will spot this. Oh, he didn't. Actually, he may be fine. I don't think he needs to blow flash yet.
Not for a third
no, he's
time.
flashed.
Performers, please be careful.
Yeah, it's fine. He's fine. Everything's fine. I was going to say, like, technically speaking, big performers could also go on a 3-0 sweep. From this point onwards, it could be a 3-0 sweep on their side, technically.
The reverse sweep is definitely still on the table, and I'd like to see that respect towards the level 1 power peak performers from CCG. They had the vision they wanted, and they back out. Between Bard and Pantheon and Jhin, I mean, you gotta at least give some amount of respect there to their ability to potentially blow you up. I'm really curious to see how this Pantheon counter pick from Alorum is going to end up working out. Going for no TP, so really all in on the ability to play an aggressive lane into this Ambessa. And it's looking like they might try to lane swap it here. So I do see
Could be.
Array sitting up towards that top side.
Yeah, and could be a nice adaptation into what could have been a pretty strong potential counter pick in lane Alorum. I think Array cancelled a couple of autos there, but Robbie as well getting collapsed in here, and they are putting pressure early on into multiple members. If the lack of ignite on both the Ambessa and the Miss Fortune meant that there wasn't a lot of chances to actually burst or force even more there, but I do like the idea there by CCG not playing for the natural lanes and making it so that they can try and have a little bit more comfort in general.
Definitely, and having Alorum forced to recall very early. Definitely a rough outcome.
Oh, that's an
Trevor pops a very early ignite, just trying to up the damage output onto Robbie Bob there, as well as minimize the efficacy of those health potions for a short period of time, but to keep him low on health. Meanwhile, here's Alorum trying to match the swap, but it's leaving top lane unguarded for a period of time.
They want to
Ray
die from
going to
this.
be able to successfully crash this.
They're trying to come down for Ambessa. 4 members already on the side pushing the wave, but Crimson is level 3 and also Trevor is coming on the side. He's still level 1 though. I don't think they saw this. Yeah, Trevor has flash.
Yeah, Trevor arriving to the scene with the crash down. Did already use it though. Going to get rooted up by Dardoch, but they will not be able to finish off that kill. Kitsuo is still here. They want to make this play happen even in a 4v2. Doesn't look like that's going to be possible though. Yeah, level 2 reached by Trevor there. Again, still top lane left totally out to dry unless Robbie Bob's going to make a TP at some point. Do they go for Crimson? He's stuck underneath the turret. Alorum leads the charge, gets the stun underneath. They're going to be able to find the CC out of Kitsuo. Alorum drops first blood. They don't have the damage for Crimson. Finally, Sage Wabe finds an angle to shoot, but it's first blood over to the Ambessa. Peak performers. They send 4, and the best they could do is even.
Yeah, 4 members down and it's only a 1-for-1. That's not the type of thing you want to do, especially when in the meanwhile Array is getting free experience, free farm, free push into top lane. Obviously Alorum now is going to be able to collapse into the top lane and try and put a stop to that, but also the member that got the kill is your direct lane opponent, which means that you're also going to be at a disadvantage if they actually try and fight between each other right now. So not the best start at all for big performers, committing a lot. That being said, they are quite close in terms of gold, so it's not the worst situation either, as Trevor.
Ooh, nice use of
He's fine.
that CC, trying to keep them locked down, but and the 2-on-2 those look like they're having no issues. Robbie Bob though playing aggressively into Aojun, but Kryra is here. He's gonna force the flash. Won't be able to chase him down. The Eep gets a little bit extra damage through there though.
And it's going to be just a flash down by Robbie Bob, but he did teleport back as well really recently. In comparison, Aojun still has his teleport available, so he can just poke a little bit more and come back into lane with full strength, and a Robbie Bob that will probably be half health. Unless he backs here.
Unless he backs here, he has already used the TP and has already used the flash as well, so he's got to show so much respect as the wave shoves up in this mid lane. So back on the clear, just going to try to power level his way up to 6. Dardoch is found. Will be able to magical journey his way through the wall. Get on out. So far, it's an early game that has favored CCG. It is not out of reach by any means, but the botch on that early dive, not getting that first blood onto the Pantheon, definitely hurts.
Yeah, 100% is. Robbie Bob gets connected again, but he's going to be fine here. Trevor does have Ignite available, so maybe they want to try and look for it. They're going to try and push this wave 100%.
Yeah, going to look for Robbie Bob here. Doesn't find the stun, does still find the crash down. Gonna be able to walk his way through on the health packs from Dardoch.
How close to level 6 actually for Aojun? Curious on that. Oh, Kitsuo.
Oh, Kitsuo diving forward, forces the flash. It's a trade of summoners between mid laner and jungler. Trevor taken low as well. All they've done is secured a safe recall for Robbie Bob, but that is still a small victory.
Yeah, it's a small victory, but a victory nonetheless for them at the very least. It is still going to be Aojun with teleport, so he can come back here without having much of a problem. He's going to be able to contest back the wave. And for the first time, we're seeing the side of peak performers going for the grubs first. Like, they are actually positioning themselves first for the grubs, and they get one. So it's not going to be for the first time full set of grubs for CCG.
All right, and now the grubs are going to be the next focus, getting taken on down. CCG going to get 2. Performers do get 1 for the first time this series, and it almost cost Kitsuo his life, but he will be able to get out of there.
But he's fine, and they also got 1. Like, you have to take the victories where they are, and they got 1, and nobody died. So all is good that starts good for them at the very least. They are pushing waves on the side of CCG, though they are still trying to put a little bit of pressure, keep up the gold in their value. They are looking to dive the Pantheon, but Pantheon is a difficult champion to dive in general.
Definitely. Now, Alorum
also has Ignite.
Tower, getting potentially focused on, is going to dive in forward, looking for the kill onto Trevor.
Ignite.
Can't quite take him down, gets put to sleep, as here comes Dardoch approaching to try to back on up the rest of the team, but Array will not be able to dump out that last bit of damage. Robbie Bob going to shuffle back in. Aojun, though, looking for a play up against his lane opponent and has Kitsuo in his back pocket to be able to chase for a little bit more. Cryro arrives here to try to bail out his mid lane. Great damage on Arabi, and Aojun going to be able to pick up the first kill of the skirmish. Kitsuo getting chased down on the opposite side. It's a double kill to Aojun.
Yeah, really well done there, Aojun, going upside towards the Lilia, able to play around your strong side, and also with no flash on Robbie either. And also importantly, Kitsuo didn't have ultimate as well, so even though he wanted to commit in that play, he didn't have flash either as well to follow up. He has enough speed. Oh wait, ooh, Lilia.
Well, Alorum finally able to find one for himself, as now Trevor will spot him in the river. Trevor looking to extend this play, doesn't have the backup of anybody though.
I thought Ray was going to come down, but probably not worth his time yet. He has farm to go for. Probably more valuable at this point than Alorum. And they do get the kill onto the Lilia. Really nice turn around a little bit of situation, particularly for Alorum, that was having not necessarily a hard time, but he wasn't really finding a lot of to do around the map, or really finding a lot to do against Ray. So getting this kill, good to put him even against the Ambessa, and we're, I think, finally going to see some... Oh no, wait, no, the bot lane is here, so probably not going to get similar lanes anymore.
Probably not. They do keep the duo in mid lane to try to fight for a little bit of priority. Going to just be Sagewabe doing his best to clear out these waves for the time being. The Dragon's been up for a while, neither team prioritizing it for the time being. It doesn't look like anybody's going to for a little while. Kitsuo has ticked over to level 6. We want everybody to be on the lookout for a potential Cyclone play. That's really what peak performers need to try to get themselves back onto the front foot.
Yeah, ideally it could work out really, really well for them, and trying to set up a snowball play in their favor could be good as well. As Array
finds himself face to face with Dardoch. Deadly Flourish connects, but they don't quite have the burst damage to 100 to 0. That misfortune. Aojun with 2 kills in his back pocket, looking much safer in mid lane, being able to perma clear waves with Arcano Pulse, and team is going to use that chance to start up the Dragon, looking like that's going to go uncontested from the peak performers.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they are going to try and go for it. It's going to be first Dragon for the side of CCG. It is a little bit of a later Dragon comparatively to where it usually gets collected, so it's not like we're going to see a pretty early soul this game. But in the meanwhile, everything kind of stabilizes itself, and we're just waiting to see if there's another play they want to try and pull on each side. I think that as long as they wait for the first item, each team will have a chance to make something work out, although Trevor already setting up for something against Robbie Bob.
Not looking like they're going to pull the trigger here quite yet. Robbie keeping a safe distance, using his soldiers for the majority of the farm. Trevor just camping out here, though, knows he doesn't have too much better to do, and he's going to be just fine here for the time being. Rift Herald, or rather second round of Grubs, are up and available now.
And they did the same trade they usually do on the side of CCG, get the initial move with Array going into it. Oh,
dive in from Robbie, going for the shuffle back, looking to start this play onto Aojun. Kitsuo with the Cyclone will take down one, looking to punish this TP now as he gets caught up by that ultimate from Dardoch. It's going to be a kill on Robbie Bob already, and Crimson looking to clean up more members. So far, it's just the 1-for-1 mid laner for mid laner, and it does look like both parties will be able to disengage there.
Yeah, important to point out though, even though both of them died, one has teleport and the other doesn't. So if they do commit for a fight here for these grubs, which could potentially happen with the way that some of the members are pressuring, there would be an advantage for peak performers. But it looks like they are going to disengage from it, they are going to give up the grubs, and it's a 1-for-1 plus the 3 grubs in favor of CCG.
No 6 grubs because of the 1 grub secured earlier, so a little bit of progress for peak performers, but perhaps not fast enough to potentially get them into a position to be winning out in these early games. It's not doomed yet for game number 3, though. Still a chance to be able to fight their way back in. Just going to need to be able to put the pieces together and find some actual fight wins. They're down about 1k gold now, so going to be looking for them to be able to try to find ways to get the place started soon.
Yeah, it's like they say, it starts with 1 and then it becomes better. So as long as they can find something else to grab on apart from that 1 grub and some of the kills, that can be still fine for the side of peak performers. And it's not like they're extremely far behind. It's less than a 1k gold lead in favor of CCG. They're still getting contested in some plays, and we've seen finally peak performers going tit for tat when they are trying to force on the side of CCG, which in this sort of games, you want to be able to not only go head-to-head against them, but also be able to force according to what the play needs.
Absolutely here. Well, keeping our eyes on what they'll be able to put together for themselves in these next couple of minutes, because the scaling from CCG is certainly a threat, especially the Xerath, who can just be so strong in later game scenarios. Has done a good job of putting Robbie on the back foot here, who has been that big savior for peak performers. Can still have a big Azir game to potentially pull them back into this one, but we're gonna need to see it first before we can believe it. And so far it's just Array collecting turret plates the way that he has all series long, and whenever they've been able to do that, CCG have just been able to produce themselves such powerful team fighting. Array been so consistent at keeping himself safe. Let's see if he's going to be able to keep it up here as multiple members coming in behind him. Kitsuo not able to find the knockup early. Finally going to be able to get it on the second try. And now the tempo up that for now. They do finish Array, but what is going to be the cost for it, as it's Kryra putting you to sleep and cleaning him up just as quickly. Kryra now moving forward on towards Dardoch. Robbie Bob has arrived to the scene and does have access to that shuffle as needed, but Aojun is here as well, starting to blast away from the sideline. Robbie dashes forward. Dardoch caught by the shocking orb and taken down. It's an unofficial triple to Kryra as Robbie Bob tries to stay alive, but will escape, but it's a fight win for CCG.
Yeah, Array pays the price with his life, and maybe they want more. Oh, Robbie Bob is dead.
Yeah. Robbie. Follow-up though, that's an unofficial quadra, by the way, to Kryra, as Alorum and Crimson are fighting it out, and Alorum is the one forced to flash defensively on his Ignite counter pick. It's all going wrong for peak performers. Yeah,
Ignite flashed down for both of them, as I think Kryra got one of them, but not every of the Crux there, and Kitsu going to try and follow there. There is teleport available on Robbie Bob, but he's still dead and probably not going to try and go for it. And Array still pushing for turrets, but we see here the play. I really like the initiative and the idea playing with the portal from the Bard. I think the first time we've actually seen that. Then the engage from Kitsuo, a little bit delayed, and I think that's the difference on why Array is able to immediately flash away and buy enough time. I think the ultimate by Dardoch, probably not the best either, but oh wait, Sage.
Wow, Array dumping out so much damage into Sage Wabe, and now looking to kite it out up against Dardoch. It's both of them very low. Curtain Call trying to keep that target low on HP, but absorbed with ease by CCG. They are pushed back. Sage Wabe and Dardoch both low on health in the skirmish, and Kryra might look for a little bit more. Doesn't quite have Lilting Lullaby up yet,
but has
the team will be able to take down that outer. No Rift Herald even needed this time.
No, they don't need the Rift Herald. They have the poke on the side, by the way. Like, yes, Kryra has a lot of damage inside of the queue consistently fighting, but the bowling balls, as long as they connect, plus the Serath on the side, they have so much poke value, and it's really difficult to stop it from being as scary as it's been right now. Plus, the Dragon live right now, it doesn't look like they want to overcommit for it, and I don't think Crimson can go for this. Turret can be let down by Robbie as well.
Shuffle back from Robbie, starting the fight up against Crimson. But yeah, this one-on-one is looking dubious at best. There is going to be the Sun Disc trying to keep him safe. Crimson takes more shot, dives in for one more. And will he stay alive? It looks like he will. The minions can't bring the damage. Crimson, one-on-one, takes down Robbie Bob.
Yeah, the problem... Oh, wait, Crimson is about to... Wait, no, Trevor!
Oh, Trevor doesn't land the knockback. There's a little bit more shielding from Crimson, though. He's fighting it back with the Eclipse. Kitsuo will finally take him down. And now Trevor, next up on the menu, Peak Performers getting themselves an injection of gold. Tempered Fate out of Dardoch will lock down Trevor and give Kitsuo that second one. But now here's Array and Aojun. The damage dealers have arrived for CCG, and they're here to cash out. Kitsuo drops.
Wait, and now
fighting the fight in mid lane. Oh no, Sage Wabe goes down too, and it's CCG winning across the map time and time again.
How many kills in this in the just like 1 minute out of that? Like, Robbie died, Crimson died, then Trevor died, Kitsuo died, Saga died. Like, everyone just kind of dying on the side each time, and the carries of CCG standing strong at the very least for now, with both of them only having one death. But importantly, they are finding good plays counter to what Peak Performers are trying to do. Like, Peak Performers get something and then immediately gets countered by CCG, so they are not able to magnify the value of their picks on the side lane, and it's not really showcasing anything meaningful for the side of Peak Performers in comparison to what CCG is able to get. That right now they are getting another tier 2 turret, they are pushing on the side, they are probably going to get this Rift Herald if they want to push a little bit more. It's just a much better play around the map for them.
Definitely is. And now what else can they piece together for themselves? As their base is getting sieged. Here comes Pantheon. Alorum looking to get a fight started onto Array, but immediately stunned by the Shocking Orb, and he might just get focused down for it. Bullet Time going to be able to take down one. It's a 1-for-1 trade so far. Robbie Bob stuck on the wrong side of the fight, and Aojun just blows him up with an Arcano Pulse. It's too much damage coming out of these CCG carries, and it makes a 2-for-1 fight that Peak Performers started. Crimson, way too mobile, and now Kryra's behind the remaining members. Kitsuo going to try to run away, but he's got people all over him. Kryra takes him out. There's going to be another Arcane Barrage to take down Sage Wabe. Dardoch falls for the ace. CCG in a dominant form, the third game in a row.
They are just destroying everything, and this feels like that meme of "Move out, old man. This is the new generation," something like that. I don't remember how exactly it went, but it feels like that. It feels like the players of the new generation just taking out the old generation in such a dominant manner so far, and I'm not sure actually how much of a old generation they are, but I'll stick with that narrative because I like it and it sounds good. And they are doing a great job on the side of CCG, so...
The average age on CCG, I would say, is younger than the average age on Peak Performance.
So I'm technically right.
You can call that a generation if so desired for narrative purposes, and I'm
in
happy
League
to
of
lead
Legends,
into
that's
that
a generation. I agree. Let's go.
You know what? Every year is a generation if you really think about it.
Yeah. And it works out here, so CCG doing a great job destroying everything. Array probably hasn't had... Oh wait, Kitsuo may die again.
Kitsuo slowed up, chased down, and Array is going to execute him if he can't get some backup real soon.
Yeah.
Bullet Time finishes him. Alorum can't do anything about it, just watches his jungler drop. And it is another numbers advantage on the map for CCG as they're looking to close out this series and lock themselves a spot in ACL top 4. Lilting Lullaby onto 2. Over the wall comes Kryra, dodging out on the shuffle from Robbie Bob. A double stun there as well. Nearly going to be enough to take down Dardoch. Aojun continues to land the Shocking Orbs, continues to pick up the kills. Kryra cannot be stopped. He's running amok inside the Peak Performers base, and CCG come up with 4.
Aljun really saw the previous game from Robbie Bob and said, I want something like that. So far, so good with the Sarah counter pick coming in, so much damage, so much value. And I love this counter pick coming in as well, because it's something we were talking about pre-show as well, with players defaulting into some of the champions that they always play as. Array may die here.
Yeah, all in, focus on towards Array, and it's a good start to the fight, especially with Pyro already low. They will lose Kitsuo in the process. Tempered Fate goes nowhere. Nobody even close to that one, as Dardoch taking some abuse on the opposite side. Alorum able to come in with the Grand Starfall, looking to be able to finish off Kryra with a big spear. And now Crimson going to be next up on the menu, going to show what this new champion can do. Picks up 1 kill onto Dardoch. Now can he get himself out to safety? He uses the oldest trick in the book, the flash, to do so. And it looks like that just might be enough. He's even pressing S on the outskirts, looking to see if he has a pathway back in, and just decides, you know what, Trevor, you're on your own. Alorum might just get himself back into the positive KD department.
Yeah, 1 more kill for Alorum works out really well for them. And yes, Trevor sacrifices his life for the sins of his top laner. And they lacked a little bit more years to try and catch up to the Mbessa. It almost worked out, but too many years, too many dashes, able to skip at the end of the day. The game is still extremely difficult for peak performers though. They are less than a 10k gold lead behind, but 2 inhibitors down, a huge wave in the top lane about to crash into the turret, and a Baron bot that is alive, and whenever they want, probably peak performers can try, CCG can try and get it. Oh, they lost top lane turret.
Now the Baron, maybe gonna be next up on the menu here. They're looking at it. They're thinking about it. CCG wants to see if they can get it for themselves. Got multiple members coming back, freshly decked out with some new items. Aljun, 3 legendary items deep now. Same for Array. Their damage output is just ridiculous, while their oppositions are still stuck on 1 apiece. This is perhaps the biggest lead CCG have had all series, although they did close out that game number 1 in like 24 minutes, so debatable, as they're going to find Alorum up on the top side and look to see if they can take him on down. Crimson in the middle of 2 does not care one bit, as they will quickly dispatch with the Pantheon. Kitsuo way too low to be able to stay standing. He has to flash away from the swirl speed. I mean, that's just disrespectful.
I think it's been disrespectful all series long. That's it's fair. Not stopping. Oh wait, Crimson may die. Oh, 1, 2.
Crimson be able to be taken out. Sagewabe continues to fire away. Won't be able to claim himself a kill. Does even land a deadly flourish. That's a pretty nice shot.
Oh, that's
but it's going to mean nothing as Lilting Lullaby is here. There's the bullet time. Gets disrupted by Kryra. They don't even let Array do the combo. But they don't need to. This game is looking done and dusted. CCG making some trades, having some fun. Trevor might even get himself in on the action here. And you know what? Enough CCG members involved. Game might go a little bit longer, TDS.
Yeah, it's only Crimson, and we know that he hasn't gone away, actually, Mbessa. Okay, he gets the kill.
Drops. I don't think Trevor can do this. Sagewabe gets himself some gold back, gets himself some kills.
This is the start of the comeback order. You have to believe.
Oh, is it?
It's, 4 kills to Sagewabe, a huge amount of minions just pouring into the base. Like, this is what? Like, 2,000 gold off of minions and kills alone, as long as he gets every last hit. Like, yeah, I think he can. This is probably a good chance. Like, maybe not comebackable, but defendable.
I'm worried about if peak performers can even clear out 3 waves of double super minions.
Hey, look, you know what? It's even more gold because now it's Robbie Bob also getting that. So it's 3 items for Robbie Bob technically, and Alorum can maybe get a component as well. So it all stacks up.
Yeah. Well, the double super reinforcements are on their way. The Baron buff is easy pickings for CCG. They're going to have to just take that one and march on in with their massive waves, but I think they'll be able to do that, TDS. I will not lie to you.
Yeah, I don't think I have any remark to make to that. Looks difficult. Looks kind of difficult. Yeah, not gonna lie. Well, maybe they catch Kryra here.
Oh,
actually, no, they're
just skip the Baron. They're skipping steps. They're skipping steps here.
They don't care.
They want to close this one out. They want to get a sub 25-minute win if they can. and I think that they can do it.
15
Sundisk
seconds.
is here. That does mean there's going to be one tower defending the Nexus. There's Trevor locking down the back line. Sagewabe uses all of his ulti shots, not able to finish off anybody. It's 2 kills back over to the Peak Performers. They're trying their best to make a stand. Aojun gonna execute one. Robbie Bob forces a flash onto Array, and Array staying alive is the final nail in the coffin. It's a triple kill to Kryra. It's an ace for CCG, and they are moving on to top 4. Peak Performers eliminated at 5th and 6th. BCG going to the lower semis, staying alive, and will not say die.
And the new generation is pretty disrespectful. They are waiting for the minions to get the kill onto the Nexus, but they get it. It's CCG victory, 3-0 in a dominant fashion, and they are trying to get the rematch against CCG Glorp really hard, because these 3 games showed complete and utter domination. Really shows why most of these players are NACL bound, if not trying to get there once again this next split, depending on what happens. But the caliber of these players really is high, and you can see on the way that they played. Aojun, massive game on the Serath, connecting so many poke damage, so much of the ultimate damage coming through as well, and doing a really good job at denying Robbie Bob. I think Robbie ended like 1-10 at the end of the game. That's not easy to do, and that's the best player from Peak Performers, completely suffering from all that CCG were able to do effectively there.
Yeah, and that will be the end of the Peak Performers journey. Still a great story for them, having been nearly out of playoffs contention, only 4-4 in the group stage, making a run all the way to top 6 here, eliminating some real heavy hitters along the way. But they will fall to CCG here in top 6, and that will be where their journey ends, along with one other team tomorrow. Still, great set of players here. Really looking forward to seeing them in the tier 2, tier 3 space. You know, you say everybody on CCG is NACL bound. I think you can make that argument for some Peak Performers players as well.
Yeah.
Robbie Bob in particular, I think really deserves some NACL looks this split, especially with Onak gone, Toasty perhaps out of the pool, depending on some of the decisions Maryville makes here. I think there's going to be some space for Robbie Bob to make his way on in. And he did have some good showings here tonight, despite a rough end to the series for him and his entire squad. But let's hear from the analyst desk. We'll be back before long for the interview. Sneezes and Quacks, take it away.
Thanks, Gordo. Nice clean 3-0. Congrats to CCG. Really well played. They out-macroed and out-fought Peak Performers all series. Really well done. I think for me, Quacks, the third game, it was all about mid-jungle and counter-pick. I thought it was really tough. The Peak Performers had to blind their mid and jungle both on red side, and CCG did a really nice job slamming those counter-picks, the Xerath and the Lilia, hard countering Wukong, Azir, and just really punishing.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like probably, I would say, the flashy game of the 3, because right out of the gate, it felt like the biggest win con player from Peak Performers was immediately out of the end. That was Robbie Bob, right? Because we had, you know, him be the big guy that gave them a shot in game number 2, just be completely out. That double kill in particular that went over to the side of CCG, I forgot my words there for a moment, and went over to Aojun on that Xerath, I think really did the trick. They were never really able to get up from that disadvantage. And I mean, again, the same issue persisted in game number 3. They were overforcing, overlooking a lot of kind of these timers that their champions had, and I felt like they kind of drafted a comp that forced them to be more proactive in the early game, wherein they didn't necessarily need to. I had really a lot of worries about the Jhin, but especially about that Pantheon. I know you said you trusted Alorum to pull that one through against the Ambessa, but it really felt like the Pantheon didn't have a ton of agency in the game. So late game kind of rolls around, they get outscaled, and the dominoes have already fallen. So it was a tough, and I would say very treacherous road for the side of Peak Performers right out of the gate, and they unfortunately weren't even really able to take the first step. Yeah,
and I think we're going to look at a dive here in a second. And And I like the Pantheon. He was up CS. You know, I know that's like a Cope consolation prize, but I thought it wasn't a laning issue. There were definitely compositional issues here, but I don't think the Pantheon.
End of the day, but first blood gold goes over to the Ambessa. And at the end of the day, that's not what you wanted if you were peak performance. You were looking for a clean dive. You're looking to get the Ambessa and get on out, get yourself an early advantage. And they weren't able to do that. So right out of the gate, it felt like another botched dive from this squad where we cautioned them before game 3 started, Sneezes, about doing plays like that because we saw how it worked out in game number 2. And lo and behold, deja vu, game number 3 was the exact same way.
Yeah, I think it's just a little setup, right? I'm not going to flame too hard because it's an off-season tournament, but you really got to nail those details if you're going to do something like a wave 3, wave 4 dive, right? You got to zone off EXP, you got to preserve your minions, you got to crash multiple minions into the tower. It's those little details that kind of come out in NACL scrims. Teams will take like 2 weeks just to look at those dives, focus on those swaps, and so I imagine almost none of these teams are scrimming. I've heard very few of these teams scrim maybe once a week. So when you're trying to pull out those more complex plays, it just takes more reps. I don't think the reps are there to really nail these plays.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're going to look at yet another team fight, which it feels like this is just CCG's element, right? These guys have been so good, not just in this series. Cryo would die to that, but he ends up pulling through and just playing with confidence. It feels like CCG really exemplified that all series long, and it only grew as the games went by. They were making more daring plays. They were making more plays you would consider to be risky, but they knew they had it under control, and I feel like that was a really good example.
And what I liked about this play in particular was that they trusted Aojun, right? Aojun is playing a ranged champion, a skill shot only champion. He has no targeted abilities. And he's saying, I'm going to flash over this wall, and I trust my younger player who hasn't had that NACL experience like some of the other players had to hit these skills over the wall. And I really like that. I think Cryo's been playing great. He had an amazing series, and I like that they're trusting their young mid laner to go carry games.
Yeah, absolutely. So a clean 3-0 coming out here from CCG. Definitely the favorites to win out here today, but I think a bit of a preview for other teams in the lower bracket of what they're going to have to deal with going forward. This is going to be the team that you are inevitably going to have to face. So before we go and toss it to an interview with the main crew, Sneezes, are there any shout outs, people you want to give thanks to, anybody you want to name in particular while you're on the broadcast today?
Yeah, well, one, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Maybe I'll be back. We'll see. And then two, just, I appreciated my last split at NACL with Blue Water. I just want to shout out Blue Water, not the TO, but the team. Obviously we're not competing with ACL here, but I'm really looking forward to what they're cooking up for next spring. And I think a lot of the roster announcements are going to come in a couple weeks here. So I've been following the off season, even though I'm retired, but just want to say thanks to Blue Water. I had a great split. Really enjoyed my last split in NACL. So, I always appreciate the homies over there. Hope they keep killing it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sneezes, for being on with us today. And thank you to both thank you to both CCG and Peak Performers for the series today. Now we are going to toss it back to TDS and Gordo, who I believe have Aojun on the line. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys later.
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of the Aegis Champions League, where we are joined by the victorious CCG Aojun. Aojun, congratulations. You guys have locked top 4 with this win, and you will be playing in our lower semifinals a week from today.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, after losing to CCG Glorp, you know, really had to. Now we have our backs against the wall, so I gotta give everything we got.
Yeah, let's start off on that a little bit. So you guys play up against your sister team earlier to get knocked on down here. They obviously underwent a pretty large restructure at the start of the season to maybe change up their roster from the dev team that it originally was. What's kind of the perspective of you guys as the sister team watching that kind of reconstruction occur? And do you guys have any interactions with them over the course of the season, or is it kind of just they could be any other team up until the point where you face off?
Yeah, we don't really have any interactions with them so far. Like last weekend was the first time we really played against them. Like we don't scrim or anything, but I think it was like really interesting to see how they, because originally the team was like seemed pretty interesting to watch, and then they made it into like actually a good contender, I guess, for the ACL spot.
Yeah, in general, I would say changing the players for whom they got probably make them as strong as possible. And I'm kind of curious if, looking back on that playoff series against the other CCG team, right? Do you think that was like, not gonna say a fluke, but like, was it your team not playing to the best of your abilities, or do you think that like you gave it your all and you want to go back once again into that matchup and give your all once again, because the next time you meet them could be either lower bracket finals or grand finals?
I think I gave it my all at the time, but we definitely identify like the mistakes we made during that match, and then like, you know, next time it's definitely going to be a different story, because even though like we lost both games, like in the beginning we were up like 8k gold, so it's just like we weren't able to like converge that lead into like a win. But I think next time after learning from the failure we had, we'll definitely be able to close it out.
Good stuff. Looking forward to seeing that one. You guys are going to play against the winner of Guangdong Flying Tigers and AOE Esports now in the lower semis as your next series. Any thoughts on that matchup? Anybody you'd prefer to face or that you expect to face coming out of that other series that'll be played tomorrow?
I think it'd be fun to face against AOE, because, you know, Ariandel he's got that signature ASL. I think it'd be pretty fun to play against. And also, like, yeah, I guess I've been like doing some 1v1s with Ariandel. You know, we've been goofing around a little bit, so it'd be interesting to actually play a match instead of just doing 1v1s.
And I'm pretty sure you're expecting to win against him, right? Like, yeah. We need you to say here you're going to dumpster him so that we can use that like for a hype video or a hype clip just in case.
For sure. If they leave open my aura, we'll see. Like, it'll be really interesting. I'll dumpster him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad I hear that. And also, just quickly want to go back into the series a little bit, because, like, speaking of other mid laners, right? You play against last week against the CCG Globers mid laner, which has been on the rise really effectively recently, and then you played against Robbie Bob today. And I'm kind of curious how you feel like you put yourself in what position with these mid laners. Like, do you think you're the best, or do you think you're top 2 at the very least? Where do you think you're setting yourself up looking into next season against these mid laners?
I think I would be definitely up there, but you know, sometimes I set myself back with like bad matchups because I'm not like too experienced with all the what I should be picking at the moment. But I guess that's like that weakness is getting covered, I guess, by like my coach and my team, because they give me advice on what I should be picking, so that really helps me out. But given the right matchup, I think I could be one of the top contenders for best mid.
Looking forward to seeing more from you there, Aljun. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's broadcast. Do want to give last word over to you. Anything you want to say, anything you want to shout out, anything you want to get in there before we close out the stream for the day?
I guess really want to shout out to Trevor, for making my lane so much easier, with that flash predict Leona. That was crazy.
Agree.
That was pretty sick.
Yep.
Every game, he just comes around mid, and then get a free kill. So it's really good, really nice of him.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Trevor. And thank you, Aljun, for coming to chat with us after your matchup today. Thank you, everybody at home, for tuning in. From myself, from TDS, from Quacks and Sneezes on the desk, and from Caddy on production. We've enjoyed our time with you. Salt Mine will be streaming the other lower bracket match tomorrow. We will be back here on Friday with the winner's side final. Definitely want to stay tuned for that one. But until
Colomer
then,
finally got his wishes.
He did. We're finally streaming them for sure. So thank you very much, everybody. We will see you guys next time. We're going to send you all over to Aegis 2, where the Aegis Diamond League is in their own playoffs.